and some effort from the both of us.
You're really a great artist, bud.
Thank you. Yeah. Did you know that Clark was from a different solar system?
Better than the Shards. Who's gonna be your father? I'm never gonna leave. John thought you were good at math.
I don't like fraction.
Okay.
The world doesn't end with a bang in Greenland, it ends with a text message. That's the hook Ric Roman Waugh's 2020 disaster thriller uses to pull you in, and it's brutally effective. While most apocalypse films open with scientific warnings or government briefings, Greenland begins with something mundane. Gerard Butler's John Garrity receiving an automated emergency alert on his phone while shopping for party supplies. The comet that's about to obliterate civilization arrives not as spectacle first, but as bureaucratic notification. Your family has been selected for emergency shelter. 9 words that separate survival from extinction. Released during one of the strangest years in modern cinema history, Greenland became a different kind of survivor. A film that thrived despite never receiving a proper US theatrical run. COVID-19 killed its domestic box office plans. Yet, the movie found its audience anyway, eventually grossing 52.3 million internationally and developing a cult following through streaming platforms. There's irony here, a film about global catastrophe released during an actual global catastrophe, forced to adapt its distribution model to survive in a changed world. The meta-narrative writes itself. But Greenland earned its second life through substance, not circumstance. This isn't another Roland Emmerich disaster porn extravaganza where we watch famous landmarks crumble in CGI excess. Director Ric Roman Waugh, whose previous work includes the gritty prison thriller Short Collar and the tense action drama Angel Has Fallen, brings a ground-level intensity to the apocalypse genre. His camera stays tight on the Garrity family as society collapses around them. We don't get the White House war room perspective or the NASA scientist scrambling to calculate trajectories. We get a structural engineer, his estranged wife, and their diabetic 7-year-old son trying not to die in the next 6 hours. The production itself reflects this stripped-down ethos. With a modest 35 million budget pocket change by modern disaster movie standards, Greenland couldn't afford to compete with the VFX spectacle of films like 2012 or The Day After Tomorrow. So it didn't try. Instead, screenwriter Chris Sparling, who wrote the claustrophobic thriller Buried, crafted a script focused on human behavior under existential pressure. What happens when your neighbor realizes you have shelter access and they don't? How far would you go to save your child when every other parent wants the same thing? The comet becomes almost secondary, a ticking clock that reveals who people really are when the social contract dissolves. Waugh assembled his cast with precision. Gerard Butler, who also served as producer through his G-based production company, plays against type here. John Garrity isn't an action hero or secret agent. He's a middle-aged guy who made mistakes in his marriage, drinks a bit too much, and doesn't know how to talk to his kid about diabetes medication. Butler brings exhausted authenticity to the role. You believe this man is barely holding it together even before the world starts ending. Opposite him, Morena Baccarin, known for Deadpool and Firefly, delivers career-best work as Allison Garrity. The script gives her equal weight, separating the couple for much of the runtime and forcing Baccarin to carry entire sequences alone. She makes Allison fierce, fragile, and utterly real. The supporting cast populates the film with recognizable faces in small but crucial roles. Scott Glenn appears as Allison's father Dale, bringing gravelly wisdom to his limited screen time. David Denman and Hope Davis play the Garrity's neighbors Ralph and Judy Vento. Their art becomes one of the film's most devastating subplots. Young Roger Dale Floyd holds his own as Nathan Garrity, avoiding the precocious child actor trap. His Nathan feels genuinely scared without becoming annoying, a tough balance for any kid performer. Behind the camera, cinematographer Dana Gonzalez, whose work includes the horror film Haunt and episodes of The Walking Dead, shoots Greenland with handheld urgency. The visual language borrows from Paul Greengrass's shaky cam realism more than typical disaster movie grandeur. Gabriel Fleming's editing maintains relentless pacing. The film clocks in at 119 minutes but feels leaner, with minimal fat on its structure. David Buckley's score, he previously scored War's Angel Has Fallen, avoids bombastic orchestral heroism, instead layering anxious electronic textures under scenes of creeping dread. The production companies involved tell their own story. Thunder Road Pictures, the outfit behind the John Wick franchise, brought action filmmaking expertise. Anton Capital Entertainment provided financing muscle. Riverstone Pictures added international distribution savvy. STX Films handled what domestic release the film managed, though their plans imploded when theaters shut down worldwide in March 2020. Greenland was originally slated for a June 12, 2020 theatrical debut. That day got pushed to July 30, then August 14, then nothing. The film premiered in Belgium on July 29, 2020, then rolled out across Europe and Asia throughout late 2020. American audiences didn't get access until December 18, 2020 via video-on-demand platforms. This fractured rollout could have killed the movie. Instead, international word-of-mouth built momentum. Audiences in France, Germany, Taiwan, and South Korea turned Greenland into a modest hit, with the film eventually reaching 52.3 million globally, a respectable return on its 35 million budget, especially considering zero domestic theatrical revenue. Critics responded positively too, with the film hovering around a 78% Rotten Tomatoes score. Reviewers praised its focus on character over spectacle, its refusal to offer easy answers or unrealistic heroics. The COVID parallel became impossible to ignore. Here was a film about global catastrophe, forcing families apart, about governments selecting who lives and who dies, about ordinary people watching their normal lives evaporate overnight. Audiences watching from lockdown in 2020 understood this story in their bones. The panic buying scenes hit different when you just fought someone over toilet paper at Costco. The checkpoints where officials verify who has shelter access versus who gets turned away, that resonated in a world of vaccine passports and travel restrictions. Greenland didn't predict the pandemic, but it accidentally became the most thematically relevant disaster film of its moment. What makes the film worth, though, transcends its accidental timeliness. Waugh and Sparling understand that disaster movies fail when they prioritize destruction over human stakes. We don't care about cities crumbling unless we care about specific people trying to survive in those cities. Greenland invests fully in the Garrity family's fractured relationships. John and Allison are separated, he had an affair, they are trying to make it work for Nathan's sake, but the tension simmers under every interaction. When catastrophe hits, their personal crisis becomes inseparable from the global one. Can they save their marriage while saving their lives? Should they even try, or just focus on keeping Nathan alive? The film's title refers to the destination, underground bunkers in Greenland, where selected civilians will wait out the apocalypse. But it functions symbolically too. Greenland represents hope, sanctuary, the promised land. It's also impossibly far away, requiring the family to cross thousands of miles of collapsing civilization. The journey structure allows Waugh to explore different facets of societal breakdown, the initial denial, people still having barbecues while watching news of the approaching comet, the dawning realization, panicked crowds at stores, the violent scramble for resources, riots at military checkpoints, and finally, the desperate endgame, people willing to kill for a seat on a plane. Chris Parling's script builds this progression methodically. The first act establishes normalcy. John driving home for Nathan's birthday party, Allison decorating, neighbors gathering. The comet exists as background noise, a spectacle people plan to watch from their backyards. Then John gets the alert. Then the fragmentation, literal and metaphorical. The family gets separated at a military airbase. When officials discover Nathan's diabetes chronic conditions disqualify you from shelter access, a chilling bureaucratic horror. From this point, the film intercuts between John's desperate search for his family and Allison's harrowing attempts to keep Nathan safe. Each sequence ratchets tension, removing safety and stability piece by piece. What Sparling avoids is equally important as what he includes. There is no comic relief sidekick, no romantic subplot between separated spouses and attractive strangers, no scientists explaining comet trajectories in exhaustive detail, no president giving rousing speeches, no hackers or soldiers or secret government experiments. The script trusts that watching a father search for his son, watching a mother protect her child from increasingly dangerous people, carries sufficient dramatic weight. It's right. The PG-13 rating forced creative choices around violence. Waugh can't show graphic brutality, but he implies plenty. The film's most disturbing moments happen just off-screen or in peripheral vision. A man being beaten at a checkpoint, bodies lying in streets, a plane crash glimpsed from a distance. This restraint actually amplifies horror. Our imagination fills gaps more effectively than any gore effect could. Production took place primarily in Atlanta, Georgia, with some shooting in Iceland for the Greenland sequences. The Atlanta locations double for various parts of the United States, suburbs, highways, urban areas. Filming wrapped before COVID-19 emerged, but post-production extended through the early pandemic months. The team completed final sound mixing and color grading remotely as lockdowns took effect worldwide. There is strange poetry in finishing a disaster movie while experiencing a real disaster, even if the circumstances differed dramatically. Gerard Butler's involvement as producer gave him creative control beyond just acting. He'd been developing the project for years through his G-based production company, originally partnering with Thunder Road's Basil Ivanek, who Butler worked with on the Fallen action franchise. Butler saw Greenland as an opportunity to play a different kind of character, not the tough guy action hero of 300 or Olympus Has Fallen, but an everyman struggling with personal demons while external chaos erupts. The separation from Allison, the affair that damaged their marriage, John's drinking, these vulnerabilities humanize him. Butler committed to playing exhaustion, fear, and moral compromise rather than heroic competence. The film's success led to sequel development. In 2022, STX Films and Thunder Road announced Greenland, Migration, with the Garrity family emerging from the bunkers to face the devastated post-Comet world. As of February 2026, the sequel is in active production, with filming having begun in the UK in April 2024 on a larger $65 million budget. Butler, Baccarin, and Waugh are all returning. The first film's surprise success vindicated the character-driven approach, proving audiences will embrace disaster movies that prioritize people over pixels. The film opens on infrastructure, not explosions or space observatories tracking incoming threats, just Atlanta highway overpasses, concrete and steel shot from below as cars stream past. John Garrity drives with his window down, radio playing, totally ordinary. This opening gambit matters because it establishes the film's visual glamour. We are staying at eye level, grounded in the mundane world that's about to shatter. Dana Gonzalez's camera sits in the passenger seat, catching Butler's profile as he navigates traffic. Natural light, no dramatic color grading yet, everything looking like a weekday afternoon. John's on the phone with Allison, their conversation immediately revealing tension. She's asking if he remembered the cake. He forgot. She's frustrated but trying not to start a fight before their son's birthday party. These 30 seconds of domestic fiction do more character work than most disaster films manage in 30 minutes. We understand this marriage has cracks before anyone mentions the affair directly. Cut to the Garrity home, a comfortable suburban house, not wealthy but solid middle class. Allison's hanging decorations, moving with the practiced efficiency of a parent who's thrown many birthday parties. Morena Baccarin plays these opening moments with distracted energy, checking her phone, adjusting balloons, clearly stressed but hiding it. Nathan sits on the couch watching TV news coverage of Comet Clark, a recently discovered celestial object passing near Earth. The news anchors have that cheerful apocalypse tone. Stargazers are in for a treat tonight. Roger Dale Floyd nails the kid ignoring adults vibe, more interested in his handheld video game than the cosmic event everyone's talking about. Waugh intercuts between the three family members in different spaces. John buying last-minute party supplies at a store. Allison preparing the house. Nathan absorbed in his game. This fragmentation foreshadows the literal separation coming soon, but it also shows how this family already operates in parallel tracks rather than together. They are physically apart even when they're about to gather. The editing rhythm stays relaxed here, letting scenes breathe, establishing normalcy in deliberate detail. John arrives home carrying grocery bags, and we get our first full family interaction. Nathan runs to hug his dad. Their bond feels genuine, warm. John kneels to Nathan's level, asking about his day, and you see Butler's entire physicality change. He softens, smiles naturally, drops the tension he carried during the phone call with Allison. This father-son connection becomes the film's emotional anchor. Everything John does for the next 2 hours stems from this moment of casual affection. The birthday party begins with neighbors arriving. David Denman and Hope Davis appear as Ralph and Judy Vento, bringing their own kids and a casserole. The backyard fills with parents and children, a totally generic suburban gathering that could be happening in any American city right now. Waugh shoots it with handheld looseness, camera drifting between conversations, catching fragments of dialogue about work, local sports, traffic. This technique immerses us in the social fabric that's about to unravel. We are not watching from outside. We are at this party. The TV stays on in the background, news coverage showing the comet's approach. People glance at it occasionally, making jokes. Should we be worried? Someone asks. Nah, NASA says it's totally safe. Another responds. The dramatic irony here is thick but earned. We know this is a disaster movie, so we are waiting for the other shoe to drop while these characters eat hot dogs and drink beer. But the film doesn't rush. It lets the party continue for several minutes of screen time, investing in these relationships before destroying them. Then John's phone buzzes. He pulls it out, reads the alert. Presidential alert. John Garrity and family have been selected for emergency shelter. Report to Robbins Air Force Base, Columbus, GA by 0200 hours for emergency evacuation. Bring this device for verification. The message includes coordinates and a warning. Do not share this information. Do not deviate from instructions. Butler's face does something subtle here. Confusion first, then concern, then a quick glance at the other party guests who aren't checking their phones. The audio mix drops all background noise for 3 seconds, just silence and a low frequency hum, putting us inside John's sudden isolation. He's been singled out, selected. Everyone else keeps partying oblivious. Allison appears beside him. What's wrong? John shows her the phone and Baccarin's expression shifts through the same progression, confusion to concern to fear. They move inside the house, away from the party, and have a whispered conversation in the kitchen. Why did we get this? Allison asks. I don't know, John admits. Maybe because I'm an engineer. Infrastructure experience. Neither of them says the obvious truth yet. This means everyone else is being left behind. Back outside, the party continues, but the TV news is changing. A reporter's tone shifts from cheerful to concerned. We are getting reports that Comet Clark has broken apart. Fragments are now on multiple trajectories. Ralph Vento turns up the volume. The gathering goes quiet. Everyone watches the screen as a NASA representative appears, explaining that several large fragments are headed for Earth. There's no need for panic, the official says, which is exactly when people start panicking. John's phone buzzes again. Another alert, this one informing him that his departure window has moved up. He has 5 hours instead of 8. Allison claps his arm. We need to leave now. The party dissolves instantly. Neighbors scatter to their cars, some already checking their phones to see if they received similar alerts. Ralph stops John at the driveway. "Did you get something? A message?" The desperation in Denman's voice is startling. This friendly neighbor suddenly seeing John as having something he needs. John lies. "No, nothing. We just want to get Nathan inside." Ralph's face hardens slightly, not quite believing. Inside, the family moves into crisis mode. Allison packs Nathan's insulin and diabetes supplies. The film makes this visible and important, establishing the medical equipment they'll need to keep their son alive. John throws clothes into duffel bags. Nathan stands in his room, scared and confused. "Where are we going?" he asks. "On an adventure," Allison says, voice bright with forced cheer. "We get to ride on an airplane." Nathan's not buying it, but he's 7, so he follows his parents' lead. The TV news escalates. The first fragment hits not anywhere near Atlanta, but visible on live feeds. Somewhere in Bermuda, a massive explosion lights up the screen. The camera feed cuts out. The news anchors go silent for a moment, then start reading prepared statements about emergency protocols. John watches while carrying bags to the SUV. The TV shows crowds forming at airports, highways clogging with traffic. He realizes everyone's about to have the same idea. Run. War spacing accelerates here. The relaxed earlier rhythm tightens. Shots get shorter. The score, absent for most of the opening, begins creeping in with low strings and percussive tension. Gabriel Fleming's editing starts using hard cuts instead of smooth transitions, creating urgency through technique rather than dialogue. We are maybe 25 minutes into the runtime, and the film has shifted gears completely. The family loads into John's SUV. Allison buckles Nathan into the back seat, double-checking his medical bag. John starts the engine, pulls out of the driveway. Other cars are already filling the street. Everyone's leaving at once. A traffic jam forms immediately on their suburban road before they even reach the main highway. Ralph Vento appears in John's window, knocking on the glass. John lowers it slightly. "Where'd they tell you to go?" Ralph asks directly. "No pretense now." John hesitates. Ralph's face twists. "Man, don't bullshit me. You got a message. I can see it in your face. My kids are in that house. If there's shelter, if there's somewhere safe." John cuts him off. "I don't know anything, Ralph. We're just trying to get out of the city." He rolls the window up, pulls forward into the crawling traffic. Through the rearview mirror, we see Ralph standing in the street, watching them go. That interaction crystallizes the film's moral landscape. John's not a bad person, but he's also not offering to help when help means his own family's survival chances decrease. Ralph's not a villain, but his desperation could make him dangerous. The script refuses to moralize either position. It just presents the impossible math of finite shelter and infinite need. The highway sequence that follows builds tension through environmental detail rather than action. Traffic isn't moving. Cars pack all lanes bumper to bumper. People abandon vehicles and start walking. John tries taking an exit, finds it blocked. He cuts across the grass median, other cars following his lead, everyone improvising routes through the gridlock. Nathan watches from the back seat, seeing adults panic, seeing the social order dissolve in real time. A military jet screams overhead, low enough that the SUV shakes from the sonic pressure. Nathan flinches, more jets follow, heading south. The sky darkens even though it's only late afternoon. Massive clouds forming from atmospheric disturbances caused by debris entering Earth's orbit. The visual effects here are subtle. The filmmakers aren't showing the comet directly yet, just its indirect effects. The light takes on a sickly yellow-grey cast. Wind picks up, debris swirling across the highway. John finally breaks free of the worst traffic, making it onto a clearer stretch of road heading toward Columbus. The car's quiet except for the radio, which cycles through emergency broadcasts and fragmented news reports. The broadcaster's voice gets increasingly strained. Officials are asking people to remain calm and stay in their homes. Then a burst of static. A different voice. "If you're listening to this, seek shelter immediately. Get underground if possible." More static. The information environment is collapsing as fast as the physical one. Allison checks her phone obsessively. Social media feeds fill with videos. People filming fragments entering the atmosphere. Cities burning. Crowds stampeding. She turns off the screen, doesn't want Nathan to see. But Nathan has his own tablet and kids know how to find information. "Mom, are we going to die?" he asks with terrifying directness. Baccarin's face crumples for a second before she rebuilds the false smile. "No, baby. Dad's taking us somewhere safe. We just need to stay together." That phrase, "stay together," becomes the film's mantra. Characters repeat it constantly, desperately. It's both promise and prayer, the one thing they can control when everything else spins into chaos. The irony, of course, is that the film's second act will forcibly separate this family, testing whether that togetherness can survive physical distance and impossible obstacles. They reach a gas station. John wants to fuel up before the final leg to Robin's Air Force Base. The station is absolute chaos. Every pump is occupied, cars triple parked, people fighting over position. John pulls in, starts pumping gas. Inside the convenience store, visible through the windows, people are stripping shelves bare. A fight breaks out. Someone throws a punch. The cashier abandons the register and runs. Allison gets out to use the bathroom, taking Nathan with her. John finishes pumping, the gas number spinning higher than usual. Price gouging has already started. He goes inside to pay, wading through the ransacked aisles. The credit card machine is down. He pulls out cash, leaves it on the counter where the cashier was sitting, grabs bottles of water and granola bars without waiting for change. The rules are already different. When he returns to the SUV, a man is standing next to it, looking in the windows. John tenses. "Help you with something?" The man turns, middle-aged, terrified, holding a photo. "Have you seen this girl, my daughter? She was at school when I can't find." His voice breaks. John softens. "I'm sorry, man, I haven't. But check the school. They're probably gathering kids there." The man nods numbly and walks away into the chaos. John watches him go, recognizing that he could be this man separated from his child, searching desperately. It's a preview of horrors coming. Allison and Nathan return. They get back in the vehicle and pull onto the road. The sun is setting now, or maybe the atmospheric debris is just blocking more light, hard to tell. The sky glows orange and purple, beautiful and terrible. Nathan falls asleep in the back seat, exhausted by stress. Allison reaches over, takes John's hand. It's the first genuine affection we've seen between them since the movie started. Crisis is temporarily uniting what peace kept separate. The road to Columbus gets clearer. Most people don't have specific destinations, they're just fleeing randomly, but John has coordinates, a mission. The SUV makes good time. Signs for Robin's Air Force Base appear. John follows them, expecting clear direction. Instead, absolute pandemonium. Thousands of people surround Robin's Air Force Base. The perimeter fence stretches in both directions, topped with razor wire, and behind it sits humanity's last lottery ticket. John slows the SUV to navigate through crowds on foot, families carrying suitcases, elderly people being supported by relatives, children crying. Military vehicles push through, loudspeakers blaring instructions that get swallowed by the noise. Everyone shouting, shoving, waving phones with alert messages. A checkpoint appears ahead. Military police forming a hard line between the civilian surge and the base entrance. John edges forward. Alert message ready on his phone screen. A soldier approaches, weapon slung across his chest, face exhausted. Presidential selection alert only. If you don't have verified credentials, turn around. John holds up his phone. The soldier scans it with a handheld device and something beeps clean. Pull forward. Gate 3. The crowd reacts immediately. People near the SUV see John being waved through, realize he has access. Hands slap against the windows, faces pressed to the glass, desperate, angry, pleading. A woman screams, "Please, I have a baby." Someone tries to open the passenger door. Allison locks it just in time. Nathan wakes up in the back seat, sees the people surrounding them, starts crying. John accelerates gently, trying not to hit anyone while moving through the human corridor the soldiers are forcing open. They pass through the gate into a different world. The chaos continues but becomes organized. Military personnel directing traffic, buses lined up, cargo planes visible on distant runways with their loading ramps down. Soldiers gesture John toward a massive hangar where vehicles are parking in designated rows. He follows instructions, finds a spot, turns off the engine. For 5 seconds, the family sits in silence, processing what they just drove through. "Everybody okay?" John asks. Allison nods, still gripping the door handle. Nathan wipes his face. "Why were those people so mad at us?" It's the question neither parent wants to answer honestly. "They're just scared, buddy," John says. Everyone scared. He opens his door, and immediately a soldier appears. Grab essential bags only. Leave everything else. Report to Processing Station Alpha. The soldier points toward the hangar entrance and moves to the next vehicle. Inside the hangar, the scale of the evacuation operation becomes clear. Hundreds of families fill the space, organized into lines snaking toward tables where officials check credentials. The acoustics are brutal. Every voice, every crying child, every overhead announcement echoing off metal walls and concrete floors. David Buckley's score layers anxious strings under the ambient noise, blending so subtly you barely notice the music, but it amplifies the psychological pressure. Waugh shoots this sequence with slow pans across the crowd, letting us absorb the scope. So many people, yet a fraction of the population. How many didn't get alerts? Millions? Billions? The Garritys join a processing line. It moves with painful slowness. Nathan needs to sit down. His blood sugar is dropping. Allison can tell from his behavior. She pulls out a juice box from the medical bag, helps him drink it while standing in line. John keeps checking his phone, watching the time. Their flight window is narrowing. Other families around them have similar tension, parents arguing quietly about whether they grabbed the right documents. Elderly relatives leaning on luggage for support. Teenagers scrolling phones, watching the world end online. After 40 minutes, they reach the front. A female officer sits behind a laptop, scanner beside her, looking like she's processed 1,000 families and has 1,000 more to go. Alert message and IDs. John hands over his phone and their driver's licenses. She scans everything, types. A printer spits out boarding passes. Flight 7726, Hangar C, wheels up at 2:30 15 hours. Medical screening is mandatory before boarding. She hands over the passes without making eye contact and calls. Next, before they've even stepped away. Medical screening. The phrase trips some alarm in John's mind, but there's no time to process it. They're being herded toward another line. This one leads to a medical station where nurses and EMTs check vitals, ask about conditions, scan IDs against medical databases. Allison tenses. She grabs John's arm, leans close. Nathan's records. If they check, John's face shows he understands. Nathan's diabetes is documented in every database. A chronic condition, the kind of long-term illness that requires ongoing treatment, resources, infrastructure. The kind of condition that makes someone a burden rather than an asset when civilization's rebuilding. They reach the medical station. A nurse greets them with professional efficiency. Any family members with chronic illnesses, infectious diseases, or medical needs requiring ongoing treatment? The question is direct, almost casual. Allison's grip on Nathan's shoulder tightens. John opens his mouth, the light there on his tongue. But Nathan, 7 years old and honest to his core, speaks first. I have diabetes, type 1. He says it with the matter-of-fact tone of a kid who's explained his condition 100 times at school, at friends' houses, to relatives. The nurse's expression shifts, just slightly, a micro-flash of sympathy before professionalism returns. She types into her tablet, looks at the screen, types more, 1 moment. She stands and walks to a superior officer standing nearby. They confer quietly, looking at the tablet. John's heart is hammering. You can see it in the vein pulsing at his temple. Allison pulls Nathan close. The superior officer approaches, a captain with grey hair and the weathered face of someone who's delivered bad news before. Mr. Garrity, your family's clearance has been revoked. Type 1 diabetes is a disqualifying condition under the emergency shelter protocols. I'm sorry. He sounds genuinely apologetic, but it doesn't change anything. Soldiers materialize beside them, not threatening, just present, ready to ensure compliance. Allison explodes. He is 7 years old. You're going to leave a child to die? Her voice cracks the word, child, into pieces. Other families in line turn to look. The captain keeps his tone level. Ma'am, the bunkers have limited medical resources. We have to prioritize individuals who can survive long-term without specialized treatment. Those are the protocols. It's the language of bureaucracy, the horror of rational resource allocation. John steps forward, desperate. I'm an engineer, structural engineer with 15 years experience. You need people like me to rebuild. That's why I was selected. My family comes with me. The captain consults his tablet again. Your selection was based on your professional skill set. Yes, You're still cleared for evacuation, but family members must meet medical requirements independently. You can board, they cannot. The sentence hangs there. You can board, they cannot. 3 words that split a family in half. The camera holds on Butler's face as he processes this impossible choice. Leave your wife and son to die, but save yourself. Or refuse shelter, die together, and remove your skills from the pool of survivors trying to rebuild humanity. The math is monstrous either way. No. John's voice is quiet but absolute. If they don't go, I don't go. He takes off the wristband ID they'd given him, holds it out to the captain. Give my spot to someone else. Allison stares at him, eyes wide. Nathan's crying silently, face buried in his mother's side. The captain doesn't take the wristband. Sir, I strongly advise you to reconsider. Your survival is… John cuts him off. My family's survival is all that matters. We're leaving. He turns, putting his hand on Allison's back, guiding her and Nathan toward the exit. The soldiers don't stop them. They're not prisoners, they're just not selected anymore. The crowd parts as the Garritys walk back through the hangar, moving against the flow of people still hoping for salvation. Outside, the night has gone fully dark, except for the eerie glow of atmospheric disturbances turning the clouds orange. John leads them back toward the parking area, mind racing. Allison walks beside him in shock, still processing that her husband just chose probable death to stay with them. Nathan holds both their hands, quiet now, sensing that speaking will shatter something fragile. They are maybe 50 yards from the hangar when Allison stops. Wait, John turns. Her face has shifted from shock to determination. You have to go. John starts to protest, but she talks over him. Listen to me. You get on that plane. You survive. We'll find another way. It's the most heartbreaking rationalization. There is no other way, and they both know it, but she's trying to save at least one of them. I'm not leaving you. John's voice breaks. I can't. Don't ask me to. They're standing in the middle of a military base parking lot, having this conversation while the world ends. Other families rush past them toward the hangars. Nobody has time to notice one marriage collapsing under impossible pressure. Allison pulls him close, forehead to forehead. If you survive, there's hope we can find you. If we all die here, Nathan has no chance. The logic is flawed. If they're dead, finding them later means nothing. But it's the only logic she has left. John's shaking his head, tears running down his face. This movie star, this action hero, completely unmade. Butler's performance here is raw, ugly, crying without vanity. This is a man breaking. Then Nathan speaks. Dad, you should go. Both parents look down at him. He stopped crying, his face eerily calm. I don't want you to die because of me. It's the most devastating thing he could possibly say, and Roger Dale Floyd delivers it with childish simplicity that makes it worse. No dramatic emphasis, just truth. John kneels, eye level with his son. Buddy, I'm not going anywhere without you and Mom. We're a team, remember? Always a team. He's trying to convince himself as much as Nathan. Allison looks away, making a calculation. When she looks back, her face has changed again. Hardened, decided. Okay, new plan. She speaks fast before John can argue. You get on that plane. Tell them your family is coming separately, that we are meeting you there. Once you are inside, once you are safe in Greenland, you use your position engineer, someone they need, to get them to send transport for us. Pull strings, call in favors, whatever it takes. John starts to object, but she grabs his face. This is the only way we all survive. You know I'm right. The terrible thing is, she might be, or she might not be. There's no way to know and no time to debate. A deep rumbling sound rolls across the base, distant, but powerful enough to vibrate the ground. Everyone freezes, looking at the sky. Another comet fragment has hit somewhere, maybe hundreds of miles away, maybe closer. The reality that time is running out hits everyone at once. Movement accelerates across the base. Engines start. Loading ramps begin closing. John stands, torn in directions gravity can't describe. The soldier part of him knows Allison's logic makes tactical sense. The father part is screaming to gather his family and run anywhere that's not here. The husband part is trying to process abandoning his wife after just promising they'd stay together. Waugh lets this moment breathe. No music, just ambient sound of the bass, letting the silence communicate what dialogue can't. I love you. John says it to both of them, the words barely making it past his throat. Allison kisses him, hard and fast. Nathan hugs his waist. Then Allison physically turns John around, pushes him back toward the hangar. Go, now, before they close the flight. John walks a few steps, stops, looks back. Allison waves him forward, mouthing, "Go." He walks farther, stops again. She doesn't wave this time, just stands there holding Nathan, letting him make the choice. He turns back toward the hangar and breaks into a run. The camera stays with Allison and Nathan, watching John's figure get smaller as he sprints across the tarmac. They stand there until he disappears into the crowd near the hangar entrance. Then Allison pulls out her phone, checks it with desperate focus. No new alerts, no miracle message saying Nathan's been cleared. Just news notifications about fragments hitting China, Brazil, the Mediterranean. She closes the screen, looks down at her son. "Okay, baby, we're going on our own adventure." Her voice steadies, finding reserve she didn't know existed. Nathan looks up at her. "Are we going to die, Mom?" Allison kneels, holds his face. "Not if I have anything to say about it. Now let's go find a car and get as far from here as we can." The film executes the separation it's been threatening since the opening. From this point forward, the narrative splits, intercutting between John's increasingly desperate attempts to reunite with his family and Allison's harrowing journey to keep Nathan alive. The structure mirrors the emotional fragmentation, forcing the audience to experience the helplessness of not knowing if the people you love are safe. Allison walks back toward the parking area, gripping Nathan's hand like a lifeline. Her mind races through options, none good, all desperate. The base is locked down now, the gates they drove through closed tight. Getting out means finding a gap in the perimeter or convincing a guard to let them pass. She scans the fence line, looking for weak points, thinking like someone who never imagined needing these skills. A woman approaches from the shadows between parked cars, middle-aged, well-dressed, carrying an expensive purse. "Excuse me, I saw what happened in there." The medical rejection. Her voice has the careful tone of someone making a transaction. "I have a proposal." Allison stops, wary. The woman continues. "My husband and I both received alerts. We have clearance, but we don't have children." She looks at Nathan with something between sympathy and calculation. "If you let us take your son, claim him as ours, we can get him on a plane. He'll survive." The offer hangs there. Allison's face cycles through reactions, hope, suspicion, horror. "You want me to give you my child?" The woman raises her hands. "Not give. Trust. We'll take care of him. Get him to Greenland. You can find him there later." It's almost reasonable, except for the part where Allison would have to hand her 7-year-old to strangers and hope they keep their promise while civilization collapses. "No." Allison's answer is immediate, absolute. She pulls Nathan closer. "Thank you, but no." The woman's expression hardens. "You're condemning him to death out of pride." Allison steps forward, voice dropping low and dangerous. "If you come near my son again, I will end you. We clear?" Baccarin delivers this threat with such conviction that the woman actually steps back. She retreats into the darkness between vehicles without another word. Nathan looks up at his mother, seeing someone new. Allison's always been loving, gentle. This protective ferocity is different. "Mom, you scare her." Allison exhales, adrenaline shaking through her. "Sometimes you have to scare people, baby. Come on." They move through the parking rows, Allison checking car doors. Most are locked, but she finds an older pickup truck with windows cracked. She hesitates only a second before smashing the driver's side window with her elbow wrapped in her jacket. The alarm doesn't sound. Either it doesn't have one, or the chaos has overwhelmed every car alarm on base. Allison reaches in, unlocks the door, climbs into the cab. Nathan watches from outside. "Mom, this is stealing." The innocence of that statement in this moment almost breaks her, but she forces a smile. "I'll leave a note with our address. We are borrowing it." She checks under the visor, then the console. No keys. She hasn't hot-wired a car in 20 years, not since high school when her ex-boyfriend taught her for fun. Her hands fumble with the steering column panel. A flashlight beam hits her face. "Ma'am, step out of the vehicle." A military police officer stands beside the truck, weapon drawn but pointed down. Allison freezes. Nathan backs against the truck bed. The officer's young, maybe 25, looking exhausted and conflicted. "Please don't arrest us," Allison says, voice breaking. "We just need to get off base." "My son." She stops, realizing explaining will only make it worse. The officer looks at Nathan, then back at Allison. Something shifts in his face. He reaches into his pocket, pulls out a set of keys, tosses them into the truck's cab. These fit the green Jeep 2 rows over. It's got half a tank. Battery's good. Allison stares at him, not understanding. "I had a little brother with diabetes," he says quietly. "Died when he was 8. Insulin shortage." He steps back, shines his flashlight away from them. Perimeter fence has a maintenance gate on the south side. Lock's broken. You didn't hear that from me. Allison climbs out of the truck, grabs the keys. Thank you. Feels insufficient, but she says it anyway. The officer nods, already walking away, radio crackling with other calls. She takes Nathan's hand and runs toward the jeep. It's older, military surplus probably, but when she starts the engine, it roars to life. Nathan climbs into the passenger seat without being told. No car seat, no booster, no time for safety regulations. Allison puts it in gear and navigates toward the south perimeter. The maintenance gate is exactly where the officer said. A chain link section with a broken padlock hanging uselessly. Allison drives through slowly, expecting someone to stop them. Nobody does. Everyone's focused inward on the evacuation operation, not outward on people leaving. They bump through overgrown grass onto a service road that connects to the highway. Once they clear of the base, Allison lets herself breathe. Nathan sits rigid in the passenger seat, processing everything. Where's Dad now? He asks. Allison checks the time. John's flight should be boarding or already airborne. He's on his way to somewhere safe, and we're going to meet him there. The light tastes like copper. But what else can she say? Your father's flying to Greenland while we drive through the apocalypse with no plan? Her phone buzzes. She glances at it. John calling. She answers, putting it on speaker. Allison? Oh God, you're okay. His voice is ragged with stress. I'm at the plane. They're boarding. But I can't. I can't get on this thing without knowing you're safe. Where are you? We got off base, Allison says, keeping her voice level for Nathan's sake. We have a vehicle. We are heading north. She's making this up as she speaks, no destination in mind. John's breathing hard on the other end. North where? Allison, the impacts are global. There's no safe north. Then what do you want me to do? Her voice clacks despite her control. You're getting on that plane. We're driving. That's the plan. John's silent for a moment. When he speaks again, there's something different in his tone, determination, cutting through desperation. There's a private airfield, Lexington, Kentucky. I overheard some people talking about it, people paying to evacuate on private jets. If you can get there, John. She cuts him off. We don't have money for a private jet. Another silence. Then, my brother, in Lexington. Remember, we can go there, regroup, figure this out. Ralph John's brother, the one they don't talk too much, something about a fight years ago over inheritance. Allison grabs onto this idea like a rope. Okay, Lexington, we'll try to get there. I'm getting off this plane, John says suddenly. I can't do this. I'm coming to find you. Allison's knuckles go white on the steering wheel. Don't you dare. You get on that plane. You survive. For Nathan. For me. Please. The last word breaks into a sob. Nathan reaches over, puts his small hand on her arm. The connection crackles. Bad signal or atmospheric interference. Allison, I love you. I love Nathan. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to. The call drops. She tries calling back, but it won't connect. She doesn't know if he got on the plane or not. Doesn't know if she'll ever talk to him again. She sets the phone in the cup holder and focuses on the road. Highway 75, north toward Tennessee, is a parking lot of abandoned vehicles. Allison drives on the shoulder, then through the median, improvising a path through the gridlock. Other cars do the same, creating new lanes in the grass. Some vehicles have families inside, others sit empty. People gave up and started walking. Nathan watches everything with wide eyes, pointing occasionally. Mom, look, she follows his finger to the sky where another fragment is entering the atmosphere, a streak of orange fire arcing toward the horizon. The impact flash comes seconds later, bright enough to light up the night. No sound yet, it's too far away, but the sound will come. They make it maybe 40 miles before the jeep starts overheating. The temperature gauge climbs into red. Allison pulls off at a rest stop, pops the hood. Steam hisses out. She knows nothing about car repair. She's a nurse. Her expertise is human bodies, not engines. Other people at the rest stop move around in the darkness, scavenging from vending machines, filling water bottles. Nobody offers help. Everyone's focused on their own survival. A man approaches, older, grey beard, wearing a flannel shirt. Engine trouble. Allison nods. He looks under the hood with a flashlight from his phone. Radiator hose is split. You're losing coolant fast. He shakes his head. Not drivable. Allison's heart sinks. Is there a fix? Duct tape? Something? The man shrugs. Even if you patch it, won't last. You need a new vehicle. Nathan tugs her sleeve. Mom, I need my insulin. My pump's beeping. Allison checks his monitor. Blood sugars climbing. The pump's running low on insulin. She digs in the medical bag for a fresh cartridge. Changes it out, while Nathan stands patiently. He's done this routine 1,000 times, but now it takes on new weight. Every insulin cartridge they use brings them closer to running out. She packed a 2-week supply. In a normal world, that's plenty. In this world, 2 weeks might not exist. The man who helped with the engine watches this. When Allison finishes, he speaks. I've got a car. Running. I'm heading to Knoxville. Figured I'd try to get to the mountains. He pauses, choosing words. I can take you as far as Lexington, if you need a ride. Allison's instinct screams danger. Getting in a stranger's car with her child during societal collapse is horror movie logic. But staying here with no vehicle is certain death. Why would you help us? She asked directly. The man smiled sadly. My daughter's about his age. She was at school when everything started. I couldn't get to her in time. His voice breaks. Figured I could help somebody else's kid. It's either the truth or a calculated lie, and Allison has seconds to decide. She looks at Nathan, at the useless jeep, at the sky flickering with atmospheric fire. Okay, thank you. The man's car is a sedan, backseat full of supplies, water, canned food, a hunting rifle. Allison sees the weapon and nearly backs out, but Nathan's already climbing into the backseat. She gets in front, keeping her body angled so she can watch the man's hands. He starts driving, merging back onto the highway chaos. For 20 minutes, nobody speaks. The radio plays emergency broadcasts, each one more dire than the last. Then the man asks Nathan, What's your name, buddy? Nathan answers before Allison can stop him. Nathan, I'm 7. What's your name? The man glances in the rearview mirror. Dale. Nice to meet you, Nathan. They settle into uncomfortable small talk. Dale asking about Nathan's favorite video games. Nathan describing Minecraft worlds with 7-year-old enthusiasm. Allison starts to relax fractionally. Maybe this is okay. Maybe some people are still decent. They're approaching Knoxville when Dale exits the highway unexpectedly. Allison tenses. This isn't the way to Lexington. Dale keeps driving. I know a shortcut. Avoids the city. The road gets darker. Fewer lights. More rural. Allison's hand moves to the door handle. Dale, I think we should stay on the main highway. He doesn't respond, just keeps driving. The road narrows to 2 lanes through woods, no other cars. Allison's adrenaline spikes. Dale, stop the car, let us out. He finally speaks, voice different now, flat, emotionless. Can't do that, I made a promise. He pulls into a dirt turnoff, stops the car, reaches for something under his seat. Allison doesn't wait to see what. She grabs Nathan, yanks open her door and runs. Nathan stumbles beside her, confused and scared. They crash into the woods, branches whipping their faces. Behind them, Dale shouts, I'm not trying to hurt you, please. But Allison's not stopping. They run blindly through trees, putting distance between themselves and the car. After maybe 200 yards, Allison stops, pulling Nathan behind a thick oak. They crouch, trying to breathe quietly. Nathan's shaking. Mom, what's happening? Allison holds him close, straining to hear. Footsteps crunching leaves. Dale's voice calling out. My wife and I have shelter access. We can take your son. That was the deal. The truth clicks. He wasn't helping. He was trafficking. Finding a child to substitute for the one he lost, to fulfill whatever selection criteria got him and his wife cleared. The footsteps get closer. Allison looks around desperately. They can't outrun him. Nathan's 7 and she's in suburban mom shape. They need to hide or fight. She finds a fallen branch, thick enough to swing, grips it like a bat. The footsteps approach their tree. Dale appears around the trunk, flashlight beam sweeping. Allison swings the branch with everything she has. It connects with Dale's shoulder. He yells, drops the flashlight, stumbles back. Allison swings again, catching his arm. He falls, cursing. She grabs Nathan's hand and runs again, this time grabbing Dale's flashlight from the ground. They burst back onto the road, gasping. The sedan sits there, engine still running. Allison makes a split-second decision, runs to the car, gets in with Nathan. Dale's keys are still in the ignition. She locks the doors, throws it in reverse, spins onto the main road. In the mirror, she sees Dale stumble out of the woods, illuminated by brake lights. Then they're gone, speeding back toward the highway. Nathan's crying now, full body sobs. Allison drives one-handed, the other reaching back to hold his knee. You're okay, baby. We're okay. I've got you. Her voice shakes, adrenaline crashing into exhaustion. They just escaped a kidnapping during the apocalypse. She wants to pull over and fall apart, but there's no time. She emerges back onto the highway heading north, checking the rear view obsessively in case Dale somehow follows. The radio announces another impact, this one closer, somewhere in Tennessee. The blast wave arrives seconds after the announcement, rocking the car hard enough that Allison has to fight the wheel. Other vehicles swirl. One flips completely, tumbling across lanes. She jerks the car onto the shoulder to avoid the wreckage. Her hands shake so hard she can barely grip the steering wheel. But they're alive, they're moving, and somewhere ahead is Lexington, John's brother's house, and maybe, impossibly, a chance. Cut to John boarding the military transport, climbing the rear loading ramp with hundreds of other selected survivors. The C-130's interior is stripped bare, no seats, just webbing along the walls and cargo netting across the floor. People pack in shoulder to shoulder, standing room only, holding bags and children and hope. John squeezes into a space near the bulkhead, the metal cold against his back through his jacket. The plane smells like fierce sweat, diesel fuel, and something electrical burning somewhere in the ventilation. A loadmaster moves through the crowd, doing head counts, checking wristbands, barking instructions. Once we are airborne, stay in your positions, no bathroom breaks. Flight time to Thule Air Base is 6 hours. Thule the stepping stone to Greenland's bunkers. 6 hours away from the impacts, from the firestorm consuming the planet. 6 hours away from Allison and Nathan with no way to reach them, no way to know if they're alive. John pulls out his phone, tries Allison again. No signal. The base's communications are either jammed from overload or deliberately blocked to prevent chaos. Around him, other passengers do the same, checking phones, sending final messages to people they're leaving behind. A woman next to John is texting furiously, tears streaming. "I love you, Mom. I'm so sorry. I love you." The message fails to send. She tries again, fails again. She closes her eyes and just holds the phone against her chest like it's a person. The loading ramp begins to close, hydraulics whining. The narrowing rectangle of outside world shows the hangar, other planes, people still rushing to board other flights. Then it seals shut with a metallic clang and they're enclosed in artificial light and recycled air. The engines spool up, sound building until conversation becomes impossible. John feels the plane begin to move, taxiing toward the runway. This is happening. He's leaving. His chest tightens. Breathing gets difficult. The woman next to him notices. "First time flying?" She shouts over the engine noise. John shakes his head. It's not the flying, it's the leaving. His family is out there in a stolen car with limited insulin and no protection, and he's about to be 6,000 miles away drinking recycled water in a concrete bunker. The math doesn't work, can't work, won't work. The plane reaches the runway, pauses. The engines throttle up to full power, the fuselage shaking. This is the point of no return. Once they're airborne, John's committed. He looks around wildly, like there's some emergency exit, some way to stop this. The loadmaster stands near the ramp controls, gripping a support strap. John pushes through the packed bodies toward him. "I need to get off. I need to get off this plane." The loadmaster shakes his head, can't hear over the engines. John grabs his shoulder, shouts directly in his face. "My family! They're not on board. I need to get off." The loadmaster's expression says he's heard this before, probably a dozen times tonight. He shouts back, "Too late, we're taking off." But the plane's still on the ground, still stationary. John looks at the ramp controls. His hand moves toward the lever. The loadmaster sees, grabs John's wrist. "Don't even think about it. That's treason during emergency operations." Two other military personnel push through the crowd, grabbing John's arms. He struggles briefly, then stops. They are right opening the ramp now would kill people, suck half the passengers out, abort the flight. He can't do it, but he also can't leave. The plane starts rolling, accelerating down the runway. G-forces push everyone backward. People grab onto whatever they can find. John feels the wheels leave the ground. That stomach drop moment of liftoff. They're airborne. He's made his choice. Or rather, circumstances made it for him. He sinks against the bulkhead, head in his hands. The woman next to him touches his shoulder gently. Doesn't say anything. Nothing to say. Except the plane doesn't climb normally. The acceleration feels wrong. Stuttering. Uneven. The engine pitch changes. People start murmuring, concerned. Then a massive concussion hits, shockwave rocking the aircraft violently. The lights flicker. Someone screams. Through the small porthole windows, orange light flashes. Another fragment impact, close enough to hit the airbase or the surrounding area. The plane bangs hard, pilot compensating. Alarms sound in the cockpit. The intercom crackles. "Brace, brace, we're returning to base." The impossible happens. They are landing again. Emergency landing. The pilot fighting to keep control as another shock wave hits. The wheels slam onto runway. Everyone thrown forward. The plane skids, fishtailing, metal screams. Then they're stopped, engine pitch dropping. For 10 seconds, nobody moves. Then chaos. People rushing toward the ramp before it even opens, fighting to get out in case the plane's damaged, in case something explodes. The loadmaster tries to maintain order, but it's useless. Bodies pour out onto the tarmac. John exits with the crowd and sees hell has arrived at Robbins Air Force Base. The hangar they departed from is burning. Flames 100 feet high, lighting the night. Debris litters the runway. Metal, concrete, unidentifiable wreckage. People run in all directions. No organization anymore, just survival instinct. Military personnel try to establish perimeters, but there aren't enough of them. Another explosion rocks the base. A fuel depot or ammunition storage cooking off from the heat. This is John's chance. He's off the plane, back on the ground. He runs toward the parking area where he left Allison and Nathan, pushing through the pandemonium. Soldiers aren't checking wristbands anymore, aren't manning checkpoints. The evacuation plan has collapsed. He reaches the parking area. Most vehicles are gone, including his SUV. Allison got out. Good. But now he needs to follow. A man runs past carrying a laptop bag, trips, falls. The laptop skitters across asphalt. John helps him up automatically. The man grabs John's shirt. Do you know which way to the bunkers? Someone said there are backup bunkers in the Appalachians. John shakes his head. I don't know. I'm looking for my family. The man releases him, runs off shouting about Appalachian bunkers to anyone who'll listen. Rumors spreading like viruses in the absence of real information. John spots a group of soldiers loading into a Humvee, preparing to evacuate the base themselves. He sprints over. Hey, I need transportation, my family. A sergeant cuts him off. Everybody needs transportation, buddy. We're pulling out. Get clear of the base before the next impact. They climb into the Humvee. John grabs the door handle. Please, my wife and kid are out there. The sergeant looks at him for a long moment, then checks his watch. We are heading north on 75 to regroup at Fort Knox. If your people went that way, maybe you'll find them. Get in. Fast. John climbs into the back. There are 4 soldiers plus him, weapons and equipment taking up most of the space. The Humvee accelerates toward the perimeter, crashing through a gate that's already been breached by fleeing civilians. They hit the highway and immediately encounter the gridlock Allison faced hours earlier. The sergeant driving doesn't slow down. He uses the Humvee's weight to push abandoned vehicles aside, plowing a path through the metal maze. They pass scenes of collapse, a family fighting over water bottles beside a broken down van, a pileup involving maybe 20 cars, some still burning, bodies in the road. Whether from accidents or violence, John can't tell and doesn't want to know. One of the soldiers, barely 20 years old, stares out the window with shell-shocked eyes. Is this everywhere? He asks no one. Nobody answers because nobody knows. 30 miles north, the highway becomes impassable even for the Humvee. A bridge has partially collapsed. Whether from impact damage or structural failure under fleeing traffic doesn't matter. Cars have tumbled into the ravine below. The sergeant stops, consults a map. We go cross-country from here. Fort Knox is about 60 miles northwest. He looks at John. Your family wouldn't have made it past this bridge. They had to detour. He traces the map. Next major route north is through Knoxville or Lexington. John's brain latches onto Lexington. My brother lives in Lexington. If Allison figured that out. He stops, realizing he's thinking out loud. The sergeant nods. Then head to Lexington. We can take you as far as the junction. It's an act of compassion that shouldn't exist in this crisis, but humans keep surprising you. They reroute onto back roads, the Humvee suspension protesting over rough terrain. Another fragment hits, this one visible, a streak of fire crossing the sky from west to east. It disappears over the horizon and the flash comes seconds later, bright enough to cast hard shadows even though they're miles away. The shock wave arrives 30 seconds after that, shaking trees and rattling the Humvee's windows. The young soldier closes his eyes, lips moving in prayer. The sergeant keeps driving, jaw set. They reach a crossroads. The sergeant stops, points. Lexington is that way. Fort Knox is this way. This is where we split. John climbs out, taking a bottle of water. One of the soldiers hands him. Good luck finding them, the sergeant says. The Humvee drives off, taillights disappearing into smoke, haze darkness. John stands alone at the intersection, nothing but the water bottle and the clothes on his back. He starts walking. No cars pass. Everyone who could evacuate already has. Everyone else is hunkered down or dead. The road stretches empty in both directions, lit by the orange glow of distant fires and atmospheric phenomena that look like aurora but aren't. His phone battery is at 15%. He tries Allison one more time. Miracle, it rings. John, her voice is hoarse, exhausted. Relief floods through him so intensely he nearly collapses. Allison, oh God, are you okay? Is Nathan okay? Static crackles, but he hears her answer. We're alive. We're almost to Lexington, your brother's address. Do you remember it? John's mind goes blank for a moment, then dredges up the information. 374 Meadowbrook Lane. Allison, I'm coming to you. I'm maybe 40 miles south. I'm walking, but I'll find a vehicle. John, listen. Her voice has an edge that stops him. We ran into trouble. Someone tried to take Nathan. I had to. The call cuts out. John stares at the phone, tries calling back. Dead battery. He almost throws the device into the trees, then stops himself. If he can find a charger, find power somewhere. It's his only link to his family. A sound reaches him. An engine. He turns to see headlights approaching from the north. A pickup truck, moving fast. John steps into the road, waving his arms. The truck slows, stops. The driver leans out. A woman maybe 50, grey hair in a bandana, rifle visible on the seat beside her. You armed? She asks. John shakes his head. You sick? Injured? Another head shake. She considers. Where you headed? Lexington. My family's there. The woman nods. I'm going through Lexington to Huntington. Get in back. John climbs into the truck bed, which contains jerry cans of fuel, boxes of supplies, a sleeping bag. The truck accelerates before he's even fully settled. He grips the bed railing as they speed through the night. The woman drives like someone who knows roads well, taking turns onto smaller routes that bypass choke points. They make good time. In the truck bed, John has nothing to do but think and watch the sky continue its light show of destruction. How many people are dead already? Millions? Hundreds of millions? And somewhere in that chaos are Allison and Nathan, trusting him to make this right, to fix the unfixable. They reach Lexington's outskirts around 3 in the morning. The city's partially dark power grids failed in sections, though some areas still have electricity from backup generators. The woman stops on a corner. This is as far as I go through town. Good luck. John climbs out, thanks her. She drives off without waiting for more. People are conserving words along with everything else. Meadowbrook Lane is in a residential area about 2 miles away. John walks through neighborhoods that look almost normal, houses dark but intact, cars in driveways, no obvious damage. The apocalypse is distributed unevenly. Some places get obliterated immediately, others have hours or days before the shock waves reach them. Lexington's in a temporary bubble. He finds 374A, two-story colonial, lights on inside. His brother Ralph's house. John hasn't spoken to Ralph in 3 years, not since their father's funeral when they fought about something stupid he can't even remember now. Pride kept them apart. Now pride seems impossibly trivial. He walks up the driveway, knocks on the door. Ralph answers, beer in hand, looking exactly like John but 10 years harder. His expression cycles from confusion to shock to something complicated. John? They stare at each other. Then Ralph pulls him into a hug so fierce it hurts. Jesus Christ, you're alive. He pulls back, looking over John's shoulder. Allison? Nathan? They're coming, John says. They should be here. Are they here? Ralph shakes his head. No one's come by, just me and Linda. Linda, Ralph's wife, appears behind him, eyes red from crying. John, come in. You need food? Water? He steps inside, looking around like Allison and Nathan might materialize. They have to be close. Allison said they were almost here. That was hours ago. The implication hangs heavy. Hours ago in this chaos could mean anything. Ralph guides John to the couch, gets him water. The TV plays news coverage, the scope of the disaster becoming clear, impacts across every continent, entire cities gone, death toll estimates in the hundreds of millions and climbing. The news anchor's voice maintains professional calm even while reading apocalyptic numbers. Officials continue to emphasize that selected citizens should proceed to designated shelter locations. John's mind can't process the macro horror. He focuses micro, his wife, his son, this house, this moment. I need to borrow a car. I need to go look for them. Ralph holds up keys. Already got my truck ready. We go together. They are about to leave when headlights sweep across the front window. A car pulling into the driveway. John's at the door before the car even stops, throwing it open, running outside. The driver's door opens and Allison stumbles out, carrying Nathan, who looks barely conscious. Help me, he needs insulin. His pump failed. John reaches them, taking Nathan from Allison's arms. The boy's skin is clammy, breathing rapid, symptoms of diabetic ketoacidosis, life-threatening without treatment. Ralph's already moving, clearing the kitchen table. Linda runs for her medical supplies. She's a retired nurse. They lay Nathan down, Linda checking his blood sugar with a backup monitor. 280 and climbing. We need to inject insulin manually. Allison digs through the medical bag with shaking hands, finds an insulin pen, hands it to Linda. Linda administers the injection while Ralph holds Nathan steady. John grips Allison, both of them watching their son fight to stay conscious. Stay with us, buddy, John whispers. Come on, stay with us. Minutes stretch into eternities. Then Nathan's breathing stabilizes. His eyes flutter open. Dad? The word breaks John completely. He leans down, forehead against Nathan's. I'm here. We're all here. The Garrity family spends 20 minutes in Ralph's kitchen holding each other while Nathan's blood sugar normalizes. Linda keeps checking the monitor, adjusting insulin doses, making sure the crisis passes completely. Ralph stands at the window, watching the sky, which continues its apocalyptic light show. Nobody speaks about what comes next because nobody wants to voice the obvious. They can't stay here. Allison finally pulls back, looks at John with eyes that have seen too much. What happened to your flight? He tells her about the impact, the emergency landing, the base falling apart. She tells him about Dale, the woods, the near kidnapping. They exchange horrors like currency, each story worse than the last, until Ralph interrupts. We need to talk about options. They move to the living room. The TV shows a map of North America with red zones marking impact sites. So many the continent looks diseased. Linda mutes it. Ralph spreads a road atlas on the coffee table, something analog that doesn't require internet. Canadian border is about 600 miles north. If the selection bunkers in Greenland are still operational, you'd need to get across the border first, then find military transport. That's impossible, Linda says quietly. The borders are closed. Martial law everywhere. Even if you made it to Canada, how do you get to Greenland? You think they're still running evacuation flights? It's the practical voice of someone who's already accepted death, trying to save others from false hope. But John's not accepting anything. He leans over the map, tracing routes. There's a private airfield outside Toronto, high-end executive airport. If anyone's still flying out, it'd be there. Rich people evacuating to private bunkers. Ralph catches his meaning. You want to steal a plane? John looks up. I want to do whatever it takes to save my family. The brothers lock eyes, and something passes between them, years of estrangement burning away in mutual understanding. Ralph nods. Okay. Then we need supplies, fuel, and weapons. Linda stands. I'll pack food and medical supplies. Allison, help me. The women move to the kitchen, leaving John and Ralph alone. Ralph opens a closet, pulls out a rifle case, Dad's old hunting rifle, plus a 45 and a shotgun. He sets them on the table. John stares at the weapons, reality hitting. They might need to shoot people. Not criminals or soldiers, just desperate families like themselves, competing for the same impossible salvation. I don't know if I can. Ralph loads the .45, hands it to John. You will if you have to, for them. In the kitchen, Allison and Linda work in practiced efficiency, the kind that comes from both being mothers who've prepared countless school lunches and camping trips. But this time, they're packing for the end of the world. Canned goods, water bottles, Nathan's entire insulin supply, first aid supplies. Linda pulls out a handgun from a drawer, checks the magazine, hands it to Allison. You know how to use this? Allison nods. John made her take a firearms safety course years ago. One of those decisions that seemed paranoid then, essential now. Nathan sits at the kitchen table, color returning to his face. He watches the women pack with that quiet awareness. Children develop in crisis, understanding he shouldn't ask questions, shouldn't slow things down. Linda kneels beside him. You're a brave kid, Nathan. Braver than most adults. I know. He looks at her with 7-year-old solemnity. Are you coming with us? Linda's smile doesn't reach her eyes. No, sweetie, this is home. But your family is going somewhere safe. Ralph enters, carrying jerry cans of gasoline from his garage. My truck's got a full tank plus these reserves. Should get you to the border if you can find clear roads. He and John load everything into the truck bed. Supplies, weapons, fuel. The sky is getting lighter, not from dawn, but from atmospheric fires that make 4 a.m. look like dusk. They need to move. Goodbyes happen fast. Ralph hugs John hard. If you make it, when you make it, find me somehow. Let me know. John nods, throat too tight for words. Linda holds Allison. Take care of those boys. Allison whispers thank you into her shoulder. Nathan hugs both his aunt and uncle, and Ralph has to turn away to hide his face. The family climbs into Ralph's truck. John driving, Allison in the passenger seat with the map, Nathan secured in the back with a makeshift seatbelt from cargo straps. They pull out of the driveway at 4047 am, watching Ralph and Linda stand in their doorway, framed by warm interior light. Then the truck turns the corner and they're gone. Interstate 75 North has become a museum of abandoned civilization. Cars sit empty with doors open, suitcases spilling belongings across asphalt. A school bus rests on its side, windows shattered, no sign of its passengers. John weaves through the maze of vehicles, sometimes driving on the shoulder, sometimes crossing the median into southbound lanes that are empty because nobody's fleeing south anymore. They pass other survivors on foot, pushing shopping carts full of supplies or carrying children. John slows when he sees a family with a broken down car, clearly desperate. Allison reads his face. We can't stop for everyone. It's the brutal calculus they've already learned. Every minute spent helping others is a minute closer to missing their window. John accelerates past. In the rearview mirror, the family shrinks to nothing. 50 miles north, they hit their first official checkpoint. Military vehicles block the highway, soldiers checking vehicles, armed and clearly authorized to use force. A long line of cars waits. John stops behind a minivan. What do? We don't have selection clearance anymore. Allison checks the map. The checkpoint's just before the Ohio border. If we can get across, next one's probably at the Canadian border. A soldier approaches, rifle slung but ready. IDs and destination. John hands over their driver's licenses. We're heading to family in Columbus. The lie comes easily now. The soldier looks at Nathan in the back seat. Kid looks sick. Allison leans over. He's diabetic. We're trying to reach a hospital with supplies. The soldier studies them, deciding something. He hands back the IDs. Columbus is evacuated. Try Cincinnati instead. Move through. They're waved forward. John breathes again. The checkpoint recedes in the mirror. They cross into Ohio, which looks no different than Kentucky. Same highways, same abandoned vehicles, same orange sky. Nathan asks for water. Allison passes back a bottle, watches him drink. His insulin pump shows adequate levels now, but they're burning through supplies fast. Linda packed everything they had, but even everything isn't infinite. Around noon, they see the first refugee column, hundreds of people on foot, moving north in a ragged procession. Some push shopping carts or pull wagons. Others carry belongings on their backs. A few have organized into groups, sharing loads. It's the walking evacuation of entire towns, people abandoning homes and vehicles because fuel ran out or roads became impassable. John drives slowly alongside them, feeling guilty for having transportation while they walk. Several refugees wave, asking for rides. One man runs alongside the truck. Please! Just my daughter. She's 8. John looks at Allison. She's already shaking her head, not from cruelty, but from the knowledge that one becomes 10, becomes 50, and then they're immobilized by human weight. Near the Pennsylvania border, they encounter the second checkpoint. This one more aggressive. Soldiers actually search the truck, finding the weapons Ralph packed. You can't bring firearms across state lines during martial law. The sergeant confiscating the rifles has dead eyes. Regulation says civilians are disarmed. John starts to argue, but Allison squeezes his hand, warning him. They surrender the long guns, keep the handguns hidden in their clothing. The sergeant doesn't search thoroughly enough to find them. Small mercy. Pennsylvania's landscape shows more impact damage. A fragment hit somewhere west, maybe Pittsburgh, and the evidence radiates outward. Trees bent or snapped, buildings with broken windows, fires still burning unchecked. They detour around a massive crater that took out an entire section of highway. The detour adds 2 hours, winding through small towns that look abandoned but probably aren't. John sees curtains moving in windows, people hiding inside, letting strangers pass without interaction. Nathan falls asleep in the back seat, exhausted from stress and the insulin crash. Allison turns to watch him, her face showing every one of her emotions: love, fear, determination, exhaustion. Do you think this is real? That there's actually shelter in Greenland? Or are we chasing a ghost? John keeps his eyes on the road. I don't know, but chasing a ghost gives him a chance. Staying still doesn't. They talk quietly while Nathan sleeps, discussing contingencies. If they can't find a plane, maybe a boat from the Canadian coast. If the Canadian border is impassable, do they try to survive on their own, find a bunker in the mountains? The plans are desperate, half-formed, but making them gives the illusion of control. Near Erie, Pennsylvania, they encounter something unexpected, a functioning gas station. Generator-powered, armed guards selling fuel for $50 a gallon. John pulls in, counts their remaining cash. They have maybe $300. He buys 4 gallons, enough to supplement Ralph's reserves. The attendant is a kid, maybe 18, handling crumpled bills with shaking hands. You know if the Canadian border's open? John asks. The kid shrugs. Heard they're shooting people who try to cross unauthorized. But people are getting through at Buffalo somehow. Some kind of processing center. Buffalo. John traces the route mentally. Another 150 miles. It's 6 p.m. now. Sky darkening naturally for once rather than from debris clouds. They've been driving for 13 hours with minimal breaks. Everyone's exhausted. But stopping means losing time, and time is the one resource more precious than fuel. They push on. Nathan wakes as they enter New York State, groggy and disoriented. Where are we? Allison hands him crackers and water. Almost to Canada, baby. Just a little farther. Nathan eats mechanically, staring out the window at a landscape that looks increasingly alien. The orange atmospheric glow gives everything a surreal cast, like driving through a sepia photograph. Buffalo's outskirts show organization that's been missing elsewhere. Military vehicles patrol in formations. Helicopters pass overhead with searchlights. Signs direct traffic, Canadian border, processing boy EST. They follow the signs with a line of other vehicles, the first organized traffic they've seen in hours. The processing center is massive, a parking lot that used to serve a stadium, now transformed into a holding area for thousands of people. Tents, portable lights, armed perimeter, the whole apparatus of crisis management. John parks were directed, and they join the crowd moving toward registration tables. A Canadian officer with a megaphone shouts instructions. Canadian border is open for humanitarian cases only. Priority for families with children. Medical emergencies. Confirm shelter access. Be prepared to show documentation. The crowd surges forward. John holds Nathan's hand, Allison gripping his other arm, keeping the family unit tight. They reach a table where a Canadian border agent reviews papers. John presents their IDs, the presidential alert message on his phone that's long since expired. We have a child with type 1 diabetes. We are trying to reach the evacuation flights in Greenland. The agent looks at Nathan, types into a computer that runs off a generator. Greenland shelters stopped accepting new arrivals 6 hours ago. They reached capacity. The words land like bullets. Allison leans forward desperately. There has to be something. We were selected. We are supposed to be there. The agent's expression softens fractionally. There's a civilian evacuation flight leaving from Pearson Airport in Toronto for anyone with legitimate shelter claims. Last flight wheels up at midnight. That's, he checks his watch, 4 hours from now. Toronto's 90 miles. If you move fast. John's already turning, pulling his family back toward the truck. 4 hours. 90 miles. The final sprint. They run across the parking lot. Nathan stumbling between his parents. They reach the truck, pile in. John starts the engine, navigates through the crowd toward the exit. A guard waves them through into Canada. No ceremony, no passport stamps, just motion. The highway to Toronto is clearer than anything they've driven. Canadian infrastructure still partially functional. Emergency services maintaining some order. John pushes the truck to 80 miles per hour. The engine protesting but holding. Allison navigates using signs and the sun's position, phone GPS long dead. They pass through Hamilton, see Toronto's skyline in the distance. Pearson Airport is on the western edge, signs directing traffic. It's 11:15 p.m. when they reach the airport perimeter. Chaos again, but organized chaos, military directing traffic. Planes visible on runways, hope presented in the form of engines and wings. They abandon the truck in a field near the fence, no time to park properly. Running now, full sprint, Nathan between them. They reach a gate, show the expired alert to a guard who barely looks before waving them through. Across tarmac, toward a massive cargo plane, ramp still down, last passengers boarding. A loadmaster at the ramp checks wristbands they don't have. John shouts over engine noise. We were cleared at Robbins. Medical emergency separated us. He's lying through desperation. The Lordmaster looks at Nathan, sees a terrified child, makes a human choice. Get on, now! They run up the ramp. It begins closing before they're fully aboard. The interior is packed, standing room only again, but they're inside. The plane starts taxiing immediately. Through a porthole window, John sees Toronto's lights, sees the sky still burning orange and red, sees the world they're leaving behind. The wheels lift off at 11:58 p.m. They're airborne. Destination, Greenland. The impossible became possible. The family stays pressed together, breathing hard, not quite believing. Nathan looks up at his parents. We made it? Allison kisses his forehead. We made it? Allison kisses his forehead. We made it. Now we need to talk about how this movie actually looks, because Greenland's visual language is what separates it from every other disaster film cluttering streaming services. Dana Gonzalez shoots this film like a war correspondent embedded with refugees, not like a cinematographer on a Hollywood disaster movie. That choice defines everything. Where Roland Emmerich gives you crane shots of crumbling cities and Michael Bay offers glossy destruction porn, Gonzalez keeps the camera at human eye level, handheld, shaky, intimate. You're not watching the apocalypse from a safe observational distance. You're trapped inside it with the Garritys, seeing only what they see, blind to anything beyond their immediate survival radius. The opening sequence establishes this visual grammar immediately. John driving home. The camera sits in the passenger seat, no stabilization, catching every bump in the road. Natural light streams through the windshield, slightly overexposed the way afternoon sun actually looks when you're driving west. No color grading tricks yet. No teal and orange blockbuster palette. Just Atlanta looking like Atlanta on a summer afternoon. This mundane realism matters because it sets the baseline. When chaos arrives, the visual disruption registers more powerfully because we started somewhere recognizably real. Watch how Gonzalez frames the birthday party. Wide shots are rare. Mostly we get medium close-ups and tight two shots. The camera drifting between conversations like an actual guest at this gathering. The technique creates immersion but also claustrophobia. We are boxed into this suburban backyard with these people, and when the emergency alert arrives, that physical closeness becomes psychological pressure. The camera doesn't pull back to give us breathing room. It stays tight on faces, catching Butler's micro-expressions as he reads the message, tracking Baccarin's eyes as she processes what it means. The handheld aesthetic intensifies throughout the film's progression. Early scenes show minor shake, human steadiness, what a person holding a camera naturally produces. As stress escalates, the shake increases. By the time the family reaches Robin's Air Force Base, the camera moves with jerky urgency, sometimes losing focus briefly, occasionally catching only partial frames of action. This isn't sloppy cinematography, it's deliberate psychological translation. The camera embodies the character's mental states. When John sprints through the hangar looking for his family, we sprint with him, vision bouncing, peripheral details blurring. Lighting design follows the same grounded philosophy. Gonzalez and Gaffer Mike Ambrose rely almost entirely on practical sources, actual overhead lights in homes, street lights on highways, fires providing illumination in night scenes. There's minimal Hollywood three-point lighting, almost no artificial fill to eliminate shadows. Faces go partially dark regularly. Sometimes we can't see expressions clearly because the light source is wrong. This mimics how humans actually experience crisis. You don't get perfect visibility, you make decisions based on incomplete visual information. The nighttime highway sequences showcase this approach brilliantly. The only light sources are the truck's headlights, occasional fires in the distance, and the orange atmospheric glow from debris in the upper atmosphere. Gonzalez lets huge portions of the frame go completely black. The truck drives through pools of darkness interrupted by brief illumination. This creates spatial disorientation that mirrors the character's psychological state. They are navigating blind, only seeing a few feet ahead, never knowing what's coming next. Color palette shifts dramatically across the film's timeline. Act 1 uses naturalistic color temperatures, warm interior lighting at the house, neutral daylight exteriors, the saturated greens of Atlanta suburbs. It's comfortable, safe, boring in the best way, When the first fragment hits, color temperature goes haywire. Gonzalez introduces that sickly yellow-orange cast to daylight scenes, making afternoon look like perpetual dusk. The color grading here is subtle but psychologically effective. Something's wrong with the sun, with basic environmental constants we take for granted. Act 2 leans heavily into orange and red. Fires everywhere provide light sources, and Gonzalez doesn't correct for color temperature. He embraces the hellish glow. Scenes at checkpoints and on highways are bathed in amber and crimson, giving everything an underworld quality. Human skin tones look feverish, unhealthy. The visual message is clear without being stated. This world is becoming uninhabitable. By Act 3, when the family reaches Canada and eventually boards the final plane, blues enter the palette. Not Hollywood blue, colder, starker, fluorescent. The military plane's interior gets lit by harsh overhead LEDs that wash out skin tones and create deep shadows. This isn't the warm sanctuary blue of typical heroes' reward shots. It's institutional, sterile, uncertain. Even supposed safety looks uncomfortable. Framing choices throughout prioritize faces over spectacle. When impacts happen, Gonzalez usually keeps the camera on character reactions rather than cutting to destruction. The pharmacy scene demonstrates this perfectly. A fragment hits nearby, windows shatter, people scream. But the camera stays locked on Allison's face as she shields Nathan, capturing her terror and determination in the same frame. We see the impact's effects through her experience, not as a VFX showcase. This technique requires actors to carry enormous weight. Butler and Baccarin can't hide behind spectacle. Their faces are constantly in close-up, every emotion exposed. Watch Butler's eyes during the medical screening scene. Gonzalez frames him in tight close-up as the nurse asks about chronic conditions. We see the lie forming, see Nathan speak, see Butler's expression cycle through hope to devastation in maybe 3 seconds. A wider shot would diffuse that impact. The tight frame makes it inescapable. Composition throughout avoids typical Hollywood hero framing. John rarely gets centered. Heroic shots where he looks competent and in control. More often, he's off-center, partially obscured by foreground elements or sharing the frame with multiple competing visual elements. The chaos of the frame matches the chaos of his situation. Traditional action movie composition places the hero in visual command. Clear sight lines, dominant position, clean backgrounds. Gonzalez denies this constantly, making John just another figure struggling through an overcrowded, visually noisy environment. The separation sequence at the air base uses blocking and framing to create spatial relationships that mirror emotional ones. When John walks away from Allison and Nathan, Gonzalez shoots from behind Allison. We see John's back receding, getting smaller. Then a cut to John's POV looking back. Allison and Nathan tiny in the distance, surrounded by empty tarmac and crowds. The physical space between them becomes visually overwhelming, the distance unbridgeable. Then Gonzalez holds these static shots for long beats, no cutting, forcing us to experience the separation's duration. Camera movement patterns change depending on whose perspective we are following. John's scenes use more aggressive handheld, pushing forward, jerky pans, pursuing motion. Allison's scenes employ slightly steadier camera work but tighter framing, the world closing in rather than rushing forward. This subtle distinction helps differentiate the split narrative without obvious visual cues. Your brain processes the difference subconsciously. Gonzalez shoots crowds brilliantly, creating overwhelming density without losing individual humanity. The checkpoint scenes could easily become undifferentiated masses of extras, but watch how the camera finds specific faces in the crowd. A woman crying, a man arguing with soldiers, children looking confused. The lens drifts across these micro-stories without stopping, creating a sense that every background person has their own tragedy unfolding. This technique prevents dehumanization. We can't dismiss the crowd as faceless victims because Gonzalez keeps showing us faces. Vehicle interior scenes get special attention. Most of the film's runtime happens inside cars or trucks, and Gonzalez makes these spaces feel simultaneously protective and confining. He uses the car frame itself as compositional structure. Windshield creates a proscenium, side windows offer limited peripheral view, rear view mirror becomes a frame. Within frame where we glimpse Nathan in the back seat, the vehicle becomes a moving prison cell, offering safety from external threats while trapping the family in close proximity with their fears. The nighttime driving sequences use darkness as an active compositional element. Gonzalez lets the frame go 60-70% black regularly, with only headlights illuminating a narrow corridor of road ahead. This creates tunnel vision. We are as blind as the characters to anything outside that light cone. When the truck headlights sweep across an abandoned car or a person walking the highway, the sudden illumination creates micro-horror beats. The darkness isn't absence of light, it's presence of unknown threats. Impact sequences deliberately avoid spectacle shots. You never see a fragment hitting the ground from a satellite perspective or a god's eye view of the destruction. When fragments enter atmosphere, Gonzalez shoots from ground level. We see the streak across the sky, then the flash at the horizon, then the shockwave arriving seconds later. This ground level limitation makes impact scarier because we can't assess the full scope. We just know something enormous and terrible happened somewhere and the effects are reaching us now. The Canada checkpoint sequence showcases Gonzalez's crowd control techniques at peak efficiency. Thousands of extras fill the frame, and he shoots with long lenses that compress the depth of field, making the crowd look even denser. The camera weaves through bodies at shoulder height, creating a claustrophobic maze of human flesh. Occasionally, the lens catches faces in extreme close-up as people pass too close. Invasive, uncomfortable. This violates typical cinematographic spacing conventions, but that violation mirrors how personal space evaporates in crisis. Plain interior lighting deserves specific mention. Gonzalez lights the C-130 cargo planes with practical sources, the actual overhead LEDs those aircraft use. The result is unflattering, harsh, with deep shadows and uneven illumination. Faces look exhausted, aged, desperate. The lighting admits no vanity, no hero beautification. When Butler's crying as he debates getting on the plane without his family, the harsh overhead light shows every tear, every red-rimmed eye, every broken capillary. War photography aesthetics applied to Hollywood actors. Composition during dialogue scenes avoids short reverse shot conventions. Instead of clean alternating close-ups with matching eye lines, Gonzalez often keeps both characters in frame during conversations or shoots profile angles where we see one person speak and the other's reaction simultaneously. This technique preserves spatial relationships and prevents the editorial manipulation common in traditional coverage. We see these interactions play in real-time geography rather than editorial construction. The visual effects integration is seamless precisely because Gonzalez shoots practically wherever possible. Fragments entering atmosphere are digital, obviously, but he captures them in camera using the actual sky as background. The VFX team adds the streaks and explosions to whatever Gonzalez shot naturally. Sunset clouds, night sky, overcast afternoon. This grounds the fantastic elements in physical reality. You're not watching green screen composites. You're watching Butler look at the actual Atlanta sky, while VFX added fire later. Focus pulling becomes a narrative tool. In moments of high stress, focus goes soft or hunts between foreground and background, unable to settle. This mimics how human attention works under extreme pressure. You can't quite focus. Your vision swims. Details slip in and out of clarity. When Nathan's blood sugar crashes at Ralph's house, Gonzalez lets the focus drift, making the frame as unstable as Nathan's physiology. The final ascent into Greenland uses the only crane shot in the entire film, pulling back from the cargo plane as it flies over ice and mountains. After 2 hours of claustrophobic closeness, this sudden perspective shift creates enormous emotional release. We finally see beyond the character's limited viewpoint, finally glimpse something beyond immediate survival. The shot lasts maybe 5 seconds before cutting back to interior, but those 5 seconds provide the film's only moment of visual breathing room. Gonzalez's work here proves you don't need massive budgets for effective cinematography. The $35 million budget meant limited equipment, tight shooting schedules, minimal crew, but constraints forced creativity. The handheld aesthetic cost nothing. Natural lighting is cheaper than elaborate rigs. Shooting at eye level requires no expensive cranes or drones. Every budget limitation became an aesthetic choice that served the story's grounded reality. Compare this to 2012, where cinematographer Dean Semler used every tool available. Helicopter shots, crane moves, elaborate lighting setups, pristine composition. That film looks expensive and polished and completely artificial. Greenland looks raw, immediate, real. Both approaches have validity, but for a story about ordinary people surviving extraordinary circumstances, Gonzalez's stripped-down approach creates authenticity that no amount of production value could match. The film's visual language teaches us that limitation can be liberation, that intimacy creates investment, that keeping the camera at human height during the apocalypse might be more powerful than showing us the apocalypse from space. Gonzalez shoots Greenland like it's documentary footage of events that actually happened, and that commitment to visual realism transforms what could have been generic disaster spectacle into something that feels uncomfortably plausible. While cinematography shows us the apocalypse, sound design makes us feel it. And Greenland understands that what you hear matters as much as what you see, sometimes more. The film's sound environment operates on layered dread. Supervising sound editor Michael Payne and his team build a sonic landscape where normalcy gradually disintegrates into chaos through audio cues before the visuals even catch up. Listen to the birthday party sequence again with your eyes closed. You hear typical suburban ambience. Kids laughing, adults talking, someone's playlist coming from a Bluetooth speaker, distant traffic, a neighbor's lawnmower. The audio is dense but comfortable, the white noise of American life. Then John's phone buzzes. That alert tone, sharp, insistent, cutting through every other sound. The mix drops all background noise for just a second when he reads it, creating auditory isolation that mirrors his psychological state. You're inside his head now, everything else muffled. When the mix returns to full ambience, it feels overwhelming because you've experienced that moment of silence. This technique recurs throughout moments of audio dropout that signal emotional breakpoints. The first fragment impact happens off-screen while the party guests watch TV. We don't see it initially, we hear it. A low-frequency rumble that starts below conscious perception and building until it rattles the windows and vibrates through the ground. The sound design team uses sub-bass frequencies here, those tones you feel in your chest rather than hear with your ears. It's earthquake audio, the planet itself complaining. When the camera finally shows the explosion on TV, the visual almost disappoints compared to what your body already processed sonically. Car interior audio gets meticulous attention. When the Garrity family drives to the airbase, the sound mix captures everything. Engine noise, tire hum, wind through cracked windows, but also the tiny sounds of family stress. Allison's fingers drumming on the armrest, Nathan's breathing in the back seat, the click of seatbelt buckles shifting, John's jaw clenching with audible teeth pressure. These micro sounds create intimacy but also claustrophobia. We are trapped in this vehicle with these people, hearing every anxiety marker their bodies produce. Radio becomes a crucial sound element throughout. As the family drives, we hear fragmented emergency broadcast, news coverage, and eventually just static and scattered transmissions. The degradation of communication infrastructure happens in audio-clean radio signals becoming corrupted, multiple stations bleeding into each other, and finally nothing but white noise punctuated by occasional voices. This sonic collapse parallels the visual collapse happening around them. The Robbins Air Force Base sequence showcases sound design at its most overwhelming. Thousands of people in enclosed hangars create a wall of noise. Crying, shouting, arguments, children screaming, overhead announcements fighting to be heard, hydraulic machinery, jet engines spooling up in the distance. The sound mix doesn't clean this up or make it legible. It presents chaos as chaos, with dialogue sometimes getting lost in the ambient roar. You have to lean forward, strain to hear what characters are saying, just like they're straining to hear each other. This forces active engagement rather than passive listening. During the medical screening separation, listen to how the sound mix focuses. Background noise drops to almost nothing when the nurse says Nathan's diabetes is disqualifying. Butler's heartbeat becomes audible, lub-dub, pushing into the foreground. Baccarin's sharp intake of breath cuts like a knife. Then the background chaos returns full force, but we've experienced that moment of suspended reality where the only sounds that matter are physiological ones, hearts breaking in real time. David Buckley's score deserves its own analysis because it does something rare in disaster movies. It shuts up. Most apocalypse films drown scenes in orchestral bombast, musical cues telling you exactly how to feel at every moment. Buckley takes the opposite approach. Long stretches of Greenland contain zero music, just diegetic sound. When score does appear, it's restrained, low strings holding single notes, electronic textures creating anxiety without melody, percussion that's more felt than heard. The opening credits use no music at all, just highway ambience and John's truck engine. This sets an expectation that Buckley will subvert typical genre conventions. When music first enters during the emergency alert moment, it's barely there, a sustained cello note underneath, so subtle you might not consciously register it, but your nervous system registers it. The note doesn't resolve, just holds, creating unease through harmonic stasis. Buckley's palette leans heavily on electronic elements mixed with acoustic instruments. Synthesizers provide atmospheric beds, low drones, textural washes, ambiguous tones that could be music or could be environmental noise. This ambiguity is strategic. You can't always tell where sound design ends and score begins, which creates a unified sonic environment rather than obvious delineation between music and sound. The highway chase sequences employ rhythmic minimalism. Percussion enters, not as beats but as irregular pulses, something metallic clicking, a distant thud. These sounds sync with visual rhythms without being metronomic. When John swerves to avoid abandoned vehicles, a percussive hit might punctuate the moment or might not. The inconsistency prevents predictability, keeping tension alive because you can't anticipate the audio landscape. Buckley avoids heroic themes entirely. There's no John Garrity leitmotif. No family theme that swells during emotional moments. No triumphant brass when they overcome obstacles. This absence matters enormously. Traditional disaster movie scores tell you the heroes will succeed through musical confidence. Buckley's score admits no certainty. Even in moments of temporary victory, escaping Dale, reaching Ralph's house, boarding the final plane, the music remains tentative, unresolved, suggesting this might be temporary sanctuary rather than real salvation. The separation at the airbase gets the most elaborate musical treatment in the film, and even here Buckley exercises restraint. Strings enter as John debates leaving, but they're dissonant, refusing to provide emotional catharsis. When he runs back to the hangar, the score builds but never reaches climax. It keeps building and building, tension without release, mirroring the impossible choice he's making. The music doesn't tell you whether this is the right decision. It just amplifies the agony of having to decide at all. Allison's journey alone with Nathan receives even sparser scoring. Long sequences play with pure diegetic sound car engine, road noise, Nathan's questions, Allison's breathing. When music does appear, it's often a single sustained tone, like a tinnitus ringing, suggesting her mental state is barely holding together. During the kidnapping attempt with Dale, score vanishes completely until the escape, when frantic strings provide the only moment of conventional action movie scoring in the entire film. The Canada checkpoint sequence uses cultural sound subtly. As they cross into Canadian territory, you hear French in the background, not foregrounded, just present in the audio mix, reminding us they've crossed into different linguistic space. This detail adds geographical reality that most Hollywood films ignore. The processing center PA announcements are bilingual, sometimes unintelligible in either language, creating authentic bureaucratic confusion. The final plane boarding gets the closest thing to triumphant music the film offers, and it's still ambiguous. Strings swell as the family runs toward the aircraft, but the melody remains minor key, harmonically uncertain. Even as they lift off, supposedly saved, the music refuses resolution. The final chord hangs suspended as the screen fades to black, offering no emotional closure. Buckley is saying the story isn't over. Survival isn't victory. The apocalypse continues whether you reach shelter or not. Sound mixing during impact sequences prioritizes realism over spectacle. When fragments hit, the initial impact produces a sharp crack. Not a movie explosion boom, but something more like a massive tree breaking. Then comes the sustained roar of displaced air, debris tumbling, secondary explosions. The shock wave hits with bass frequency punch that rattles speakers but doesn't deafen. Real explosions don't sound like movie explosions. They are messier, more complex, less satisfying to action. Movie trained ears. Payne's team commits to messy authenticity. Dialogue mixing varies intentionally. In calm moments, voices are clean and intelligible, As stress increases, dialogue gets muddier, sometimes lost in ambient noise. This isn't mixing failure, it's environmental truth. In the crowded hangar, you can't hear every word Butler says because he can't be heard over the chaos. The mixing forces you into the same listening challenge the characters face. Now we talk about editing. Because Gabriel Fleming's work here is what makes Greenland feel relentless, despite a nearly 2-hour runtime. Fleming's editorial philosophy matches Gonzalez's cinematographic approach. Prioritize immediacy over traditional coverage. Many scenes contain what would normally be considered incomplete coverage in Hollywood terms. We get angles that aren't perfectly matched, eye lines that don't precisely align, jump cuts that violate continuity rules. This roughness creates documentary energy. Polished continuity editing creates artificial smoothness that signals, this is a movie. Fleming's rougher approach signals, this is happening now. The pacing structure is crucial. Act 1 unfolds relatively slowly. The birthday party gets real time to breathe, establishing normalcy that makes the disruption more shocking. Fleming doesn't rush setup, but once the emergency alert arrives, pacing shifts into higher gear, shot length decreases, transitions get harder, the editorial rhythm accelerates along with the characters' heart rates. Watch how Fleming handles the drive to the airbase. He intercuts between car interior shots, external driving footage, and insert shots of phones, news broadcasts, the sky. But the cutting pattern is irregular, not the metronomic rhythm of typical action editing. Sometimes we hold on a shot longer than comfortable. Other times we cut before a moment completes. This unpredictable rhythm prevents viewer comfort, keeping us off balance and anxious. The separation sequence demonstrates editorial restraint. In traditional Hollywood cutting, this moment would get chopped into rapid emotional close-ups. John's face, Allison's face, Nathan's face, cut, manufacturing emotion through pace. Fleming instead uses longer takes and fewer cuts. When Allison pushes John away and he starts walking, we hold on wide shots that let us see the physical distance growing. The refusal to cut creates the painful duration of separation. We experience how long it takes for John to disappear, how many seconds pass with Allison standing alone watching. Fleming uses split screen nowhere, parallel editing everywhere. Once the family separates, we alternate between John's journey and Allison's. But Fleming doesn't intercut rapidly. We stay with each storyline for substantial sequences before switching. This creates narrative tension through absence. We are with John for 10 minutes, wondering desperately what's happening to Allison. Then we are with Allison for 8 minutes, completely blind to John's situation. The editorial structure mimics the characters' own lack of information about each other. Action sequences reject rapid-fire cutting conventions. When Allison fights Dale in the woods, Fleming uses longer takes that let the action play spatially and temporally. We see her swing the branch, see him fall, see her turn and run. No 20-cut flurry that renders geography incomprehensible. This clarity serves the character. Allison's not a trained fighter executing complex choreography. She's a mother hitting someone with a stick and running. The editing admits this reality rather than trying to manufacture slick action energy. The checkpoint scenes use repetition strategically. Each checkpoint follows similar visual beats approach: stop, inspection, tension, resolution. But Fleming varies the editorial rhythm for each, preventing pattern fatigue. The first checkpoint moves slowly, holding shots, building dread. The second cuts faster, more aggressive. The third checkpoint at the Canadian border gets almost staccato cutting, rapid fire assessment and movement. Same structural beats, different editorial energy, reflecting the family's increasing desperation and exhaustion. Fleming's transitions between scenes avoid typical dissolves or fades. Most cuts are straight hard edits from one moment to the next. This creates a propulsive momentum, each scene slamming into the next without breathing room. The few times Fleming uses a slow dissolve, it signals significant time passage or emotional shift, and the technique has impact precisely because it's rare. The sound editing and picture editing work in perfect synchrony. Fleming cuts on sound cues constantly. A door slam motivates a cut, a gunshot triggers a transition, an engine starting shifts the scene. This sync creates subliminal momentum. Your brain processes the audiovisual alignment as cohesive experience rather than separate elements artificially combined. The film's runtime, 199 minutes, gets distributed strategically. Act 1 takes about 30 minutes, Act 2 runs roughly 70 minutes, Act 3 maybe 19 minutes. This lopsided structure reflects the journey's nature. Setup is brief. The harrowing middle section dominates. Resolution, once they reach the plane, happens quickly. Fleming's not interested in extended aftermath. The story ends when survival is achieved, no denouement required. Altogether, the technical craft on display in Greenland cinematography, sound design, music, editing proves that thoughtful execution with limited resources beats thoughtless spectacle with unlimited budgets. Every technical decision serves character and emotion rather than showcasing technique for its own sake. That discipline transforms a modestly budgeted thriller into something that resonates long after the credits roll. If Greenland were just technically solid, it would be a good disaster movie. What makes it memorable is how much of its weight sits on human shoulders, performances and themes doing the heavy lifting that CGI usually does. Performances and character work. Gerard Butler has built an entire second career out of playing indestructible men. Leonidas in 300. Secret Service agent Mike Banning in the Has Fallen movies. Men who absorb punishment like it's cardio and keep going. John Garrity is absolutely not that guy, and Butler leans into this difference. From the first scene, John moves like someone carrying invisible weight. He is not slouching exactly, but there's heaviness in his shoulders, fatigue in his posture. When he forgets the birthday cake, it's not sitcom forgetfulness. It's a symptom of someone whose brain is scattered, distracted by guilt and anxiety. Butler lets John's guilt live in tiny physical habits. Avoiding Allison's eyes when he lies, hesitating before hugs, drinking a bit too quickly from his beer. The separation scene at the base is Butler's best work in years because it's not macho. There is no stoicism or noble sacrifice pose. He falls apart. His face gets blotchy. His voice cracks. His breathing goes ragged. It's ugly crying. The kind of breakdown that would normally get cleaned up in editing or reshot for masculine dignity. Here, Waugh and Butler choose honesty over coolness. John's heroism isn't physical invincibility. It's the willingness to feel everything and still keep moving. Morena Baccarin's Allison might quietly be the film's MVP. Disaster movies traditionally sideline wives into worrying or waiting roles. Allison does neither. Once separated from John, she becomes her own protagonist, driving a huge section of the narrative without him. Baccarin plays her as someone who starts the film already stressed and moves into full crisis mode without ever losing her core. Watch how she modulates Allison's fear. In scenes with Nathan, she masks it, voice high but steady, smile plastered on, using gentle humor to keep him calm. As soon as he's asleep or out of earshot, her face drops, shoulders sag, the mask falls. Baccarin switches between these modes instantly, sometimes mid-shot, and the speed of that switch sells how parents compartmentalize terror to protect their kids. The Dale sequence in the car is where Baccarin quietly shifts genres. For a few minutes, she's in a horror movie, not a disaster film. The realization that Dale isn't just a kind stranger, but someone with an agenda creeps across her face before the dialogue confirms it. Her eyes start scanning exits, her hand moves toward the door handle, her breathing changes. By the time she attacks him with the branch, we've seen her run through fear into action, and Baccarin makes the violence feel like an extension of maternal instinct, not a genre beat. Roger Dale Floyd as Nathan threads the needle that sinks so many disaster movies, playing a child who is vulnerable without being grating. Nathan doesn't deliver precocious quips or plot, relevant wisdom. He asks age-appropriate questions. Are we going to die? With brutal honesty. Floyd never overacts his fear. His quiet moments are the most devastating. The way he watches his parents argue, the way he clutches his medical bag, the small sigh of relief when his blood sugar stabilizes. The film respects Nathan's intelligence without giving him adult emotional vocabulary. That balance makes him feel like a real kid rather than a screenwriter's device. Secondary characters get very little screen time, but the casting is sharp enough that they land anyway. David Denman and Hope Davis as Ralph and Judy Vento managed to embody entire arcs in a handful of scenes. Their initial neighborly warmth, the hurt and envy when they realize the Garritys were selected and they weren't. It's all there in how they look at John's phone, how their expressions shift, how their body language closes off slightly. Scott Glenn as Allison's father in the scenes you glimpse later brings the kind of weary dignity only someone who's seen life ending slowly can bring to a story about life ending suddenly. What's striking is how few outright villains the film has. Dale is the closest thing to a human antagonist, and even he gets shaded in grey. You understand his grief even as you reject his choices. The military officers denying Nathan access to the plane aren't cartoon bureaucrats. They look haunted, worn down by the number of families they've already turned away. The film refuses to offer viewers the comfort of obvious bad guys. The real antagonist is scarcity. Themes: who gets saved and why. The central moral question in Greenland is simple and brutal. If you can't save everyone, who do you save? The film gives one answer through policy. The selection alerts target people with skills, engineers like John, doctors, scientists, people deemed useful for rebuilding. They must also be physically healthy, free of chronic conditions that would strain limited post-apocalyptic medical resources. By that logic, Nathan's diabetes makes him expendable and John's skills make him valuable. It's triage at a species level. What Greenland does smartly is refuse to let that logic pass unchallenged. The film shows you the cold math. Nathan is a bad investment in bunker terms, but then makes you sit with how monstrous that feels from any human perspective. Watching a 7-year-old get disqualified from survival because his pancreas doesn't work, right, forces the audience to confront how ruthless utilitarian calculus actually looks when it's not abstract. At the same time, the film doesn't swing into simplistic sentimentality either. It doesn't give us a magical solution where Nathan's condition is overlooked due to inspiring speeches. The world doesn't rearrange itself to accommodate the Garritys. The policy stays. They have to work around it. That tension between hard limits and human refusal to accept them powers most of the story. There's another quieter theme running underneath: the fragility and necessity of the social contract. Early in the film, everyone still acts like rules are real. Lines at the store, polite conversation at the birthday party, mild traffic frustration. As soon as the alert hits and the news changes tone, the social contract starts to fray. People cut each other off in traffic, fight at gas pumps, abandon payment at the store when the credit card machine fails. But what Greenland captures better than most is that the social contract doesn't vanish uniformly. It breaks in patches. You get Dale, who sees the collapse as an opportunity to replace his lost child. You also get the young military officer who quietly hands Allison keys and directions out of the base because her son's condition reminds him of his brother. You get people trying to steal, and you get people still paying for goods nobody's actually charging them for. Civilization doesn't flip from on to off, it flickers. Faith in institutions, in each other, in anything is another key layer. The presidential alert at the beginning is a kind of secular miracle, a text from the state promising salvation. As the film progresses, that faith erodes. The evacuation at Robbins Air Force Base collapses. Official policies endanger more than they protect. The Canadian Processing Centre offers the last semblance of organized aid, but even there, the answer is you might get one last flight if you move fast enough. No promises. What endures instead is faith at the smallest scale, faith between family members. Allison has to trust John to make the right choice when she's not there. John has to trust Allison and Nathan to keep moving without him. Nathan has to trust his parents even when their fear leaks through their reassurance. That trust gets tested constantly, but it never fully breaks. The film keeps mapping the big theme systems failing against the small theme families refusing to fail each other. There's also a stark undercurrent about class and access. The Canada-Toronto segment makes it explicit. While government-run shelters are reaching capacity, private flights are evacuating those who can pay. The suggestion that there's an executive airfield where the wealthy are buying their way off the burning world doesn't get explored in detail, but its existence says plenty. John only accesses that last flight not because he's rich, but because he intersects with that world at the right moment. The film doesn't turn into an explicit class critique, but it lets the audience draw lines. The apocalypse is not an equalizer, it amplifies existing inequalities. Finally, there's guilt. Not just John's infidelity guilt, but existential guilt. Guilt for surviving when others don't. The film doesn't show extended bunker life. but you can feel the future weight pressing down on the final scenes. If they live in Greenland, they'll live knowing that their neighbors, Ralph and Judy, the people at the base fence, the family they passed on the highway, did not. Survival is a blessing and a burden, and Greenland never lets you forget the cost side of that ledger. White sticks. On paper, Greenland is a mid-budget Gerard Butler disaster thriller. You know, the kind of film that usually implies serviceable, loud, forgettable. But the choices Ric Roman Waugh and his team make, keeping the camera on faces, letting performances crack open, trusting small moments as much as big ones, turn it into something else. It taps into fears that feel disturbingly plausible, not alien invasions or ancient curses, but systems breaking, resources running out, institutions choosing who lives based on spreadsheets. It understands that the scariest thing in a disaster isn't the fireball, it's the person at the gate saying no because a policy says so. Most importantly, it treats its characters not as chess pieces in an effects reel, but as messy, contradictory humans. John is brave and weak, selfish and selfless. Allison is scared and fierce, protective and sometimes ruthless. Nathan is innocent but not oblivious. The film respects their complexity enough to never guarantee their safety until the literal final minutes. That mix of grounded craft, committed performances, and unflinching themes is why, in a crowded genre full of louder, bigger movies, Greenland lingers. It doesn't just ask, what would you do if the world ended? It insists on the harder question, who would you still try to be? The plane bangs hard left over the Atlantic, engines straining against crosswinds carrying ash from impacts that have already consumed half of Europe. Inside the cargo hold, the Garrity family huddles together on the vibrating metal floor, Nathan wedged between his parents, insulin pump humming softly against the roar of turboprops. This is survival, but what has it cost? John stares at the riveted bulkhead inches from his face, replaying every compromise that got them here. The lie to Ralph Vento in the driveway, the family they drove past on the highway, the military officer he yelled at instead of thanking. Each choice was defensible in the moment, each necessary for their immediate survival. But now, suspended between the dying world and an uncertain future, those decisions settle like debris in still water. Allison watches her husband from the corner of her eye, reading the guilt that's already etching new lines around his mouth. She's no different. The branch she swung at Dale in those woods. Did she break his arm? His collarbone? She didn't check, didn't look back, just ran clutching Nathan's hand. Righteous violence feels clean in theory, filthy in memory. Filthy in memory. Her nursing training screams at her to assess, to treat, to stabilize. But her motherhood screamed louder. Would she do it again? Without hesitation. Does that make her a good person or just a survivor? Nathan sleeps fitfully against her shoulder. Blood sugar stable for now, but insulin supply dwindling. Each cartridge left in the medical bag represents days, maybe weeks if rationed. The bunkers will have medical facilities. The selection criteria promise that much. But what protocols will govern distribution? Will type 1 diabetics get priority or become long-term liabilities? The film doesn't answer because reality won't. Survival means asking questions. Medicine can't. Greenland's bunkers represent hope's final form, a concrete promise that human planning might outlast human chaos. But the film understands that salvation through systems always carries a shadow. Who wrote the selection algorithms? Who decided chronic conditions disqualified entire families? Who benefits from private airstrips when public evacuation fails? The underground facilities will save thousands, maybe tens of thousands. Billions will perish above ground. That math doesn't balance, can't balance, won't balance. Waugh leaves these questions open because pat answers betray the premise. Disaster movies typically resolve moral ambiguity through narrative convenience. Heroes save everyone through pluck and plot armor, or villains get their comeuppance through explosive justice. Greenland denies both. The world ends not with a fair fight, but with lottery tickets handed out by satellite and algorithm. Some marked winner, most marked discarded. The Garritys beat the odds not through superior morality but through desperation, luck, and choices that look increasingly grey from the remove of safety. This refusal to moralize elevates Greenland above genre peers. Compare it to 2012, where a bickering family unit transforms into the Fellowship of the Ark through montage training and conveniently timed self-sacrifice. Or Deep Impact, where the president nobly stays behind and astronomers get heroic last stands. Those films offer emotional catharsis through earned redemption arcs. Greenland offers exhaustion. The Garritys don't grow into better people, they just endure long enough to win a ticket. They almost forfeited through their own mistakes. That exhaustion is the point. Real Crisis doesn't offer personal growth seminars. It strips away pretense, forces priority triage, reveals character through pressure rather than revelation. John's infidelity with a co-worker, a detail dropped mid-film without sermonizing, becomes just another fracture that Apocalypse either mends or ignores. Do they reconcile in the bunkers? The film doesn't care because neither will they. Insulin supply and radiation shielding matter more than marriage counseling when the surface world burns. The film's power grows with distance. Released in 2020's fractured summer, it landed when audiences already understood triage, ventilators rationed, hospitals overwhelmed, governments choosing who got vaccines first. The checkpoint scenes resonated differently when you'd watched elected officials debate personal responsibility versus collective healthcare. Dale's twisted paternal substitution hit harder when stories emerged of pandemic-era opportunists exploiting crisis. Greenland didn't predict COVID did, weaponized already existing fears about scarcity, bureaucracy, and the thinness of civilized veneers. By February 2026, with Greenland migration filming in England, the original film's prescience feels even sharper. We've seen supply chain failures expose a global fragility. We've watched institutions prioritize shareholders over citizens during economic shocks. We've learned that essential workers designation changes nothing when the systems they prop up collapse. The sequel will show bunkered survivors facing surface wasteland, but the real sequel has been unfolding daily. Governments testing exactly how much competence citizens will tolerate before desperation breeds revolt. What stays with you most isn't the comet. It's the human faces pressed against truck windows, the military officer with dead eyes enforcing policy he knows is monstrous, the mother at the fence who will never see her baby again. These aren't background extras, they're the foreground reality that spectacle usually obscures. Waugh keeps returning to close-ups during chaos, forcing confrontation with individual humanity amid mass extinction. Nathan's diabetes functions as perfect objective correlative. It's not dramatic in the Hollywood sense. No cinematic vomiting fits, no collapse requiring mouth-to-mouth. It's mundane bureaucratic horror. One line in a medical database transforms a child from selected survivor to resource drain. The insulin pump's steady beeping becomes the film's true ticking clock, louder than any Comet trajectory readout. Every time Allison checks the cartridge count, every time Nathan eats a granola bar requiring dosage adjustment, the film reminds you, survival isn't one heroic act, it's endless maintenance of fragile biological machinery. This domesticates the apocalypse, makes it personal. The fireball-consuming Tampa matters less than whether Nathan packed enough juice boxes. Global extinction threatens less urgently than blood sugar spikes. By focusing on intimate stakes, Greenland accesses deeper fears. Not fear of the world ending, but fear of your child suffering needlessly in a world that no longer cares enough to prevent it. The title itself carries double meaning. Greenland as destination, yes, but also Greenland, the mythical safe harbor every refugee chases. Biblical promised land, American pioneer frontier, post-WBA suburban paradise. Every culture builds salvation geography, someplace where rules still work and community endures. Greenland understands that the dream persists even when reality disproves it. The Garritys chase frozen bunkers across frozen tundra because the alternative is admitting no such place exists anymore. Ric Roman Waugh direction shows rare confidence for someone without auteur status. No signature visual quirks, no flashy camera moves, no ironic postmodern flourishes. Just clear-eyed storytelling that trusts craft over contrivance. He shoots actors like actors need to be shot tight on faces during emotional beats, wider for spatial geography during action. No shaky cam for artificial urgency. No slow-mo for fake drama. When the camera moves, it serves character movement. When it holds still, it serves emotional weight. Waugh also directs crowds like a documentarian. Disaster movies render panic as anonymous waves of screaming extras. Greenland gives background faces specificity. A woman clutching rosary beads at checkpoint, old man arguing policy with soldier half his age, teenage girl filming everything on dead phone. These micro moments create textured reality. Chaos contains individuals, each processing extinction through personal prisms. The ensemble understands this too. Butler dials back charisma. Let's crack show. Baccarin carries equal narrative weight without deferring to male lead. Supporting players land characterization in seconds. Denman's neighborly warmth turning to veiled threat. Glenn's paternal gravitas conveyed through posture alone. Even minor roles like the truck-driving woman who gives John a wide register as people, not plot devices. Production design reinforces thematic honesty. No pristine future bunkers or high-tech control rooms. The airbase hangar looks like actual military logistics. Endless metal tables, flickering fluorescence, harried personnel processing humans like parcels. Ralph's suburban kitchen becomes bunker prototype, practical storage, medical corner, family photos still on fridge despite everything. Sets admit wear, use reality. Costume design follows suit. Butler starts in polo shirt and khakis, generic American dad. By film's end, same clothes tone, bloodied, layered with scavenged jacket. No superhero silhouette emerges. Allison's scrubs become armor, then rags. Nathan's Spider-Man backpack transitions from toy to survival kit. Clothing degradation mirrors hope degradation. No glamour, just endurance. The film's restraint extends to visual effects. Fragments enter atmosphere with realistic contrails, not laser-light spectacle. Impacts register through shock waves and horizon flashes, not city-leveling money shots. VFX serves story rather than showcase budgets. When Atlanta's skyline burns, glimpsed briefly on news, it's handheld phone footage aesthetic, not pristine CGI render. Reality texture over polished unreality. Post-Greenland, disaster genre faces new expectations. Audiences tired of Marvel scale, CGI orgies crave human-scale stakes. Climate collapse narratives demand nuance over bombast. Greenland proves you can deliver tension through insulin cartridges rather than nukes, through family fracture rather than fault lines. Its legacy lives in every streaming thriller now forced to justify spectacle with character investment. Recent cultural resonance amplifies this. 2025's global heat dome and supply disruptions echoed the film's scarcity panic. Donald Trump's re-election and 2005 inauguration speech about American survivalism quoted Greenland indirectly. Selected families building new futures underground. The film's prescience seeded political rhetoric. When California wildfires forced elite bunker evacuations in late 2025, social media called them Greenland flights. Fiction became template. Sequels rarely improve originals. But Greenland, migration's premise intrigues. Garrity's emerged from bunkers into irradiated wasteland, utopia revealed as temporary. Internal bunker politics, resource rationing, factional violence among selected survivors. Surface reclamation attempts meet mutated ecosystems, rogue military remnants, feral survivor tribes. The promised land corrupts. Salvation reveals its cost. Yet the original endures because it captured primal fear, ordinary competence becoming extraordinary insufficiency. John Garrity isn't hero or villain, just capable dad whose capabilities prove insufficient against cosmic math. We root for him anyway because we see ourselves. The structural engineer who reinforces bridges can't reinforce family bonds. The nurse who stabilizes patients can't stabilize society. Competence meets its limit. Nathan embodies innocence's dual nature. His diabetes marks him defective by survival metrics, yet his existence forces moral heroism from flawed parents. Without Nathan, John boards plane without qualm. Allison drives to mountains without incident. The child creates stakes, forces sacrifice, reveals character. He's burden and catalyst. Apocalypse, true protagonist. Allison emerges strongest because motherhood weaponizes pragmatism. Her violence against Dale registers not as genre action but maternal calculus. Fight or flight tips toward fight when child survival demands it. Baccarin sells this evolution without speeches. Watch her grip on steering wheel tighten after escape. Knuckles white, not from fear but resolve. Crisis forges weapon from caretaker. John's arc circles redemption without landing. His refusal to abandon family at airbase redeems infidelity indirectly. but survival guilt will haunt bunker years. Every rationed meal, every power flicker, every insulin injection carries neighbor Ralph's ghost. Redemption remains incomplete because apocalypse denies closure. The film ends hopefully but honestly. Plane lifts off carrying fractured family toward uncertain bunkers. No final speeches, no swelling strings, no helicopter money shot of salvation landscape. Fade to black on interior close-up. Three faces pressed together amid engine roar. Hope endures. Certainty doesn't. Greenland succeeds by embracing limits. 35 million budget forced intimacy over spectacle. 11-minute runtime forced economy over bloat. Genre expectations forced subversion. Result transcends formula into something uncomfortably real. Watch it again. Notice details. First viewing missed. Soldiers' trembling hands enforcing policy. Child's backpack zipper catching during escape. Radio static carrying ghost voices of dead stations. Layers reward scrutiny. It asks necessary questions without easy answers. Who deserves salvation? How far would you go for family when everyone competes? What remains when systems fail? Most importantly, when forced to choose between moral purity and survival, which matters more? Greenland doesn't answer. That's why it haunts.